Welcome everybody, welcome. Welcome back to another reading today. We're continuing on in Deuteronomy from Deuteronomy 3. And so if you want to open your Bibles to that, we'll get started shortly. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the seriousness of the time that we're in at the moment. So I was speaking with a brother in Christ yesterday at length about some of the things in his own journey and comparing notes, if you will, about some things, and yeah, it's very adamant. Like, we're in this period of time now. It's quite a serious period of time. I want to show you something also to highlight that. And when I say serious point of time, I mean we're in a time where we can't afford to stumble even a little bit. We can't afford to trip over even once. I mean, we literally have to be so careful right now. Because I believe that the harvest is about to begin. I believe that that's about to start. We're on the verge of it. And because of that, I think we're going to see the beginning of the tribulation period begin. And with that period of time, things are going to change quite dramatically. And so obviously we don't know the date and the time. We can only speculate. But we can look at the events that have happened before us. We can look at things on God's calendar as well, and start to put them together and see that we are accelerating towards utter change. And if we're not ready for this change, he will come like a thief in the night, right? These judgments that are coming, that will strike those like a thief in the night. And so we have to be watching, and we have to be diligent. We literally have to be surrendering ourselves and everything. I mean everything. Right? We can't leave any stone unturned here as far as walking and being in obedience to God. And so I feel this heaviness as I start to study this more and more. This heaviness is not a heaviness of like a heaviness of being attacked or anything like that. It's a heaviness of the weight of the truth. And I feel that, starting to nudge towards, this time that we're coming into now, and is actually potentially the start of the tribulation period. So, what I'm trying to say to you is that things could get very real very quickly. And I believe that many are going to be caught off guard for this. So when this actually does start to happen, and it may not play out in the way that we think it will, it may not be visibly apparent as we think it will, or it may be very much so visibly apparent straight away. We don't know. Okay, so my job isn't to tell you the future. My job isn't to say this will happen in this way. My job is to warn and to say when I think something's coming, to be ready, and to basically not to be complacent, and not to be just sitting around. So I'm going to show you something, just where I'm up to so far with something I've been looking into. I will, however, put a giant disclaimer on it. I'll put a giant disclaimer on it and say that it is very much subject to change, even just in a matter of days. So, but there is something about this that really, when I locked it in last night, it just, the weight came, and it's very, it's very sobering. So I feel the need to share this with you, but the disclaimer is there, of course, that there is a very good chance that this could not be accurate. There is a chance that this could be, but there is something in this that is hard to deny. So the other thing too, I want to shout out to a brother in Christ who who filled in some blanks in this part. He had some of the points that I missed early on in my study of this, and I was led to his channel the other day. Funnily enough, I was staring at the I actually posted the very thing that I was missing. So let's start from the start, and I'll explain first. Okay, so let's just go to my channel. All right, God's channel, I should say. So In the community section, I posted this. Okay, I posted this alignment. This was one of the very first moments of me watching, right, in my own journey, and the answer was staring me in the face. Like, the answer staring me in the face is that in God's calendar, okay, we accept that. For example, in God's calendar, we accept that what He's done, what it appears He's done. I don't want to proclaim anything, but what it appears He's done is He's the entire story of the Bible is in the stars. Okay, the entire story of is in the heavens. Okay, the heavens declare the glory of God. Okay, we see throughout the Bible He references stars. He references things He's created, like Orion. Okay, when we look up at night and we look at the stars, okay, it represents the story in the Bible. But what's happened? Obviously, man is named the stars. Okay, you know how Adam named the animals and things like that? Well, man named the stars, okay, and we see that those stars and the names that were given, even God has, in His Word, has mentioned, all right? So we see Orion, we see all these other things that He talks about, the Pleiades, and then we see all these Greek gods and symbology there in the sky, all right? And so it's important to understand that. And what we also learned was that what are referenced as angels, right? Stars are referenced as angels as well. We also see that there are planets as well. Okay, and what I'm proposing here is that the planets are the angels that pour out the bowls. Okay, and so I'm saying that they symbolize or represent that's happening on earth. And so, you know, this brother, Eric Rickman, his name is, has a channel. He came to this conclusion, and it clicked with me when I heard this in the moment. And there's some other gaps here he's filled out in the times of, which I can't deny, of some of these eclipses and things. So I'll show you where I'm up to, and just an understanding I stumbled across. All right, so I came across this understanding that between all the eclipses and the blood moons, we have these periods of days. Okay, so we have two sets of periods of days. So we have days that are divided in half. So we have days, I'll just bring the numbers here so it makes more sense. Okay, so between these two periods, there's that many days. Between these two periods, there's that many days. There's that many days, and so forth. Okay, it adds up to that and that. Okay, so that's a 7-year period of eclipses, and that's a 3.5 year period of eclipses. So between all his eclipses and his blood moons, okay, we have this number, these two numbers. These two numbers we can use to validate, okay, the distance between events. And what I've come to realize is that the starting point was the 21st of August 2017. Okay, the starting point up until, from that very first marker up until that second marker, which is the 8th of April, was that 7-year period of eclipses. Okay, and then we have markers in between as well. So this is just an outlier. Okay, when we apply this actually to a greater picture of the seals, okay, so if we realize, like, if I just take you through now, just a draft briefly, okay, and we see here in Revelation 6:1, if he says, now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder. Okay, this particular living creature has a voice like thunder. It's separate from all the others where the living creature speaks. Now what we learn about the 4 living creatures is that they're from the tribes of Israel. They represent the tribes, okay? And so we're expecting it to be one of those constellations that speaks. Okay, so we're expecting it to be the tribe of Judah here because of the voice like thunder. And how do we know that? We know that from the scripture. It says, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. It's in Revelation 10:3. Okay, and we also see that these voices of the 7 thunders are sealed up for a time for later. Okay, and when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered and write them not. Okay, so I believe absolutely, this is the starting point here. It starts on an eclipse in Leo, okay, on Judah, on the lion. Okay, it starts bang on there, all right, and from this period of time. And so as I've worked my way through, okay, the start of the thing in your arm, okay, marking on that eclipse as well, okay, then marking on the next one, okay, on the very first date, the 11th of March, when they rolled it out, and then marking actually on the second part of that, where it says, and he was given a great sword. I realized that there was an eclipse on Orion. He's holding the sword, okay, and so that's another marker to look here to June. So these are all falling on eclipses, or the only one that doesn't is the date where the thing rolled out, but it fell on Purim. Okay, then we go across, and I'll go in greater detail in a video. We go across to then what I believe to be the third seal. Okay, and it's the black horse rider, and what we see here is a mark. We get a mark on the scales, right? And then we see also the same eclipse lit up here as well. This was the exact timing that the food prices soared like a rocket, all right? And it was December in 2020, and that's when it all went up. All the charts point to December 2020. So that's interesting too. All right, what I noticed then is when I joined just this first part together, immediately, and I mean, I literally didn't even have to adjust it. I landed on 1,211 days immediately. Okay, that exact period of time I was talking about down here, between these dates, it's near an impossibility, right? And then, and considering too that one of those dates isn't on an eclipse, so technically, it shouldn't fall within that timeline. There's no way. All right, then I got to the second half, and marked the pale horse rider, the fourth seal, around at this eclipse here, which is in late October. We also get this confirmation where it says, its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. Okay, I was given a dream early in my walk, a vision early in my walk about this planet with a love heart on it. Right? I didn't understand it, and a blue planet as well, or a palish blue. I didn't understand it, and then I realized that that's what Pluto is. Pluto has a love heart on it. And anyway, funnily enough, that it says its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. Okay, and so I know for sure that Pluto's is referred to as Hades. Okay, and Pluto is in this location, which I'll go into more in a video, the location we'd expect it to be in at the time. All right, and also Neptune, which Pluto orbits around Neptune as well. So what we're seeing here is the use of all the planets, okay, as the angels, and I'll go back and I'll show you how we reach this conclusion. But then we get to the solar eclipse, which seems to end the period of time of the 2,422 days. It ends on the 9th of April in a place, I have to bring up the picture here. It's the closest point in the eclipse in America. And so that period of time, the 7-year period of time is achieved, right, through these seals in this order. So that 7-year period of time, that exact period of eclipses going off this calendar, all right, is achieved in that period of time, which is mind-blowing to actually land on that date. I haven't made this to fit. I literally have come up with these days here on these eclipses, and it's fit, which is crazy. But then we also go 2,422 days forward to the end of the tribulation, if that's when it began, and we land on the 24th of November 2030 on Hanukkah, on the Jews' feast. I'll turn your feast in the morning, and so that is another 7-year period there. What is also interesting, if this was the day of the start of the harvest, 3.5 years or 1,260 days from this point, it lands exactly on the 21st of September 2027, which is 3.5 years, which is the exact same time that we see the the man-child is born out of the symbol of Virgo, right? It's like a repeat of what we've seen in the 2017 eclipse here, where the woman gives birth. I think I've moved this all around accidentally by the looks of it. But my point is that there's so much in this. So that's obviously the 2017 eclipse here, the sign, okay? And so that, I believe, was, when that happens as a side event to here. So it's a marker to here. Obviously there's other events that are to be counted off this date, okay? So what I'm saying is it's not just like one event, then the next, then the next. I'm saying there's simultaneous things happen, okay? So this first event happens, okay, which I believe is the marker for the seals, but then we see this happen sort of down here in line with as this happens. So what we see, the other thing I've learned too, is that if you turn off if you actually turn off the image of the woman and you just focus on the constellation, you see it's the birthing of Jupiter, okay? So what we have to do is we have to follow Jupiter. And if we follow Jupiter, we see actually just as it crosses this point, it's just after the 9th of September 2017. Okay, so everyone's looking at the point where the moon's at her feet, okay? But the actual birthing took place a little bit earlier. She was already giving birth on the 9th, okay, the 9th of September. And so if you zoom right in Stellarium, you see that this conjunction with Jupiter, it moves, it comes out of here, it's actually given birth. And that this planet here, Jupiter, is in here for 42 weeks, which is undeniable. Really, it's uncanny, if you will. So what happens is you follow Jupiter, okay, and then if we follow Jupiter, that's where we start to see these things happen. We see the birthing of Jupiter, and we see that as he comes out, that's how we start to line these eclipses up, as we're literally following Jupiter. And the white horse rider is the first point, all right, that he goes to, and he lands on, and that's where that eclipse falls on, okay? And obviously, we see he has a bow, and a crown was given to him, but the bow also means mask, a face mask, and also the crown also means the corona, or the crown of the sun, okay? And there's also a crown here. It's like a double meaning. So for example, there's the sign in the heavens of the bow with the crown, but in real life, all right, we had the bow, okay, and the crown, the name that was being used, all right, and a great sword was given to him. What's in a hand? A great sword, okay, but also then in the heavens, it's represented by Orion, which we see further on. We see, the sword that's given is represented by Orion. So honestly, like, this was super sobering, this exercise, and like I say, there are many variables here, but everything falls on an eclipse. Everything falls on those events. Even the altar of souls falls on this blood moon here, and this altar is the cross. Okay, so upside down it's the cross, and it's just the way that it's facing here. When it's standing upright, it's represented as the altar, the symbol of judgment, or the time of judgment. So I believe in the heavens, we're getting to these segments of events here, and it is so plausible that this eclipse could mark the start of the tribulation. And so, I'll leave it at that. But it's really, it's really sobering. It's really mind-numbingly sobering to see that we could be that close. We could be that close to all this kicking off. And we may also see, for example, when we get to the sixth seal, let me just go back. Okay, for example, the sixth seal, it says there was a great earthquake. Okay, and the sun became black as sackcloth, the moon became like blood. We see this in, let me put my camera on. We see this in 2023, there was the Great Turkey earthquake. Okay, that could actually also have been marked by that. But I don't think so. I think this is a different event. And the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit. We've already looked at this, and this period is around May to June. Okay, this is where Pentecost is. Right? This is exactly where Pentecost is. Right? The pouring out of the Spirit in Acts. All right? This is where this happens. And then the sky vanished like a scroll. It's exactly what happens during an eclipse. Okay, so that could be the eclipse at like Tabernacles, for example. So we could see this play out over the entire course of the year just on this one seal. You understand? If this is correct. So I'm not saying that, on the day of this, we may not notice anything directly happen, but soon after, we may notice this great earthquake. We may notice this event here, which we believe is Satan being cast down, and then we may notice this other eclipse here. We see the other seals have been broken up into several events too, potentially. So I just think that like this time that we're in now, right, we have to be so careful in our walk. I mean, we have to really examine ourselves every day. This puts the fear of God into me. I promise you. Like I don't deliver this to you in happiness and joy of these things, because I know that many people aren't yet ready. And who knows if I'm even ready, all right? So I bring this in a serious tone. Of course I have joy that we are, approaching these times, but I also, I understand that these things are very serious. And so we shouldn't take anything for granted, our time for granted. We should be making sure we're staying in repentance. We should be making sure that we are walking with all submission to God. We're walking with absolute, just obedience to Him in what He wants us to do. We should have no filthiness in our lives. We shouldn't be like, we shouldn't be tending to anything of filthiness or wickedness and pursuing that. We really need to examine ourselves so closely, guys. And because if this is a marker for the start of this, then sometime this year we're going to see something really, really horrible start to occur, and it's going to go from there. So, this all, that might be all the preparation time we have. So, I will say, don't be complacent and think that this is going to go on forever. But this, to me, like I can't deny these numbers. I can't deny these periods of time. Going through many years, it is the same. These numbers form the times between the eclipses than the blood moons. It depends whether you start counting from the blood moons or the eclipses. I believe it's His calendar, and His calendar is divided up in a sequence of time, but the time is not how we think. We count days. I believe He counts moons, and He counts eclipses and events. And I believe the days are obviously important in Revelation, because the days are how we count from these events. But I think if we don't understand these events here, then we can't work out the calendar. So I even went as far as just mapping out for 1 year just to understand this. This is an example of the new moons, okay, for 2013 to 2014. So that's the start of all the months. They're called new moons, crescent moons. Okay, they also look like upside down bowls, or they look like sideways bowls when the bowls are poured out by the angels, the planets. So I believe that they're probably going to represent that, and as well. So, but we have the blood moons, and then we also have the other references. We've spoken about the 24 elders, like time and other things as well. So there's plenty of evidence to support time is part of the story, part of a layer of the story in the heavens. And so as we look to this, be sober, be vigilant, be steadfast, take it serious, because this may be approaching the final moments of our preparation time, right, of our testing. And so be really, really careful in the decisions that you make and who you invite into your fellowship, for example. All right, make sure, because the enemy, he's going to roam around like a prowling or prowling lion, right, seeking who he may devour. That's what he's going to be doing. He's going to be looking to have you stumble at the very last moments. And so in these times that are coming, I can't stress that enough, that we need to be, constantly staying in the Word, staying in prayer, and just trying to keep ourselves in a state of, absolute obedience and obviously love and other things. So let's not, and I say this through love. I say this because I don't know my own personal situation. I don't know where I'm at. Okay, I have to assume, right, that I trust, I have faith that I'm going to make it. Right, I have faith that I'm going to make it, but I really believe the road is so narrow. I really don't think there's going to be many that will make it. I really don't think there will. And I want everyone here to make it, right? I want everyone to make it. And so I think we need to really take a good look at examine ourselves in our walk today, and not waste any more time, and not chase after things in the world or focus on that, but keep our eyes on Him, solely on Him. Okay, because when these dates locked in, I tell you what, like I did feel a bit of elation, but I also felt a lot of that, okay, this is heavy, this is super heavy now, and yeah, so I feel that on my heart today as I get moving, and I don't want to make you feel heavy or anything, but I want you to understand the seriousness of this time that we're in. And not many people are like running around shouting, yay, rapture this, rapture that, or getting excited and stuff, right? I'm contemplating many people are about to die. Okay, it's not going to be good. And these judgments, I go back to a dream I had, which I was terrified to be standing where I was standing. And God was speaking to me in this dream, and I remember the fear that came over me, all right? I remember the fear of being in that presence. I didn't like it. I didn't like that presence, that feeling, because it really showed me when it talks about the fear of God. I was shaking when I woke up, right? I was shaking, and I know he did that to humble me. I know He did that to show me, and I greatly fear God. I do absolutely greatly fear Him, and I know His love, and I know His all these things. Okay, but honestly, we are given this clear, stern warning that if we don't keep His commandments, that if we don't walk in obedience to Him and don't surrender, okay, you will not be my disciples. Okay, what do we see in the Bible? We see, and we haven't spoken about this yet, but we see that, if we look at Jesus, He's from these multiple lines. So He's a priest, okay, he's a king, He's a prophet. Okay, we see some people, okay, they may be a prophet, okay, and then they may qualify as a priest, okay, and so, but then there's also the other portion as well, to rule and reign with Him. There's also the other portion, to sit on thrones, to rule and reign with Him. That's like a third portion, okay, and that third portion is that true blessing we would seek, but understand, and that we have to get into Melchizedek and other things to talk about that. But from the line of Melchizedek is that line of that holy priesthood, and we see who Melchizedek was. Right, he was the king of Salem, okay, the king of peace, the king of Jerusalem beforehand, and so. But my point is, guys, is that we are in this time where we just want to be in obedience, and we want to make sure that we're surrendering to Him. And if He asks you to do something that terrifies you, do it. Okay, do it. If He asks you to do something that absolutely makes you shake in your boots, do it. Because He's telling you, all right, I need you to be here now. I need you to be here in this place. So, let's focus on remaining obedient and staying in His word, and making sure that we discern the times we're in. Okay, we got to try and get this word out to as many people as we can. We got to try and let people know, all right, the time is short, and to keep planting those seeds and spread His word as far and wide as we can, the gospel. So I bring you that with a heavy heart because it's sobering, and I thought I'd be excited about understanding this, and I can't obviously confirm it in any way, but just as immediately when I came across it, I felt the weight of it, and so I deliver this to you now, just with that warning. Okay, don't muck around with this. This is your salvation, and also to, this is your chance to make sure that we're really walking in that obedience, and it will involve a great deal of suffering. Okay, it will involve a great deal of suffering, if not already. So continue, please be steadfast, and let's be sober minded and not complacent, and then we'll make it. All right, we'll get there. So let's start reading the word now. Okay, it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy to talk about these things. So welcome, Christina. Welcome, Rose Bergman. Jesus loves you. Welcome. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, don't think that this eclipse is a fakery. It lines up. It keeps coming back to the numbers of his calendar. Okay, so many people will put forward that the eclipse is a fakery. I don't believe it is. I believe that there's no way that it's a fakery. So if we all cite it, there's no way, based upon going all the way back. I believe it's an event, and I believe what the enemy's trying to do is use the event for their own purposes. On Sonia's channel, Sister Sonia's channel, you've seen that NASA are launching rockets up at this time, a bit like Babylon, all right, firing arrows up into the heavens, all right, Nimrod firing arrows up into the heavens, wanting to do that, thinking he was that almighty, that mighty, right, that he could do that. And so we're seeing that kind of behavior in other things as well. So this is a really interesting time, because how do you get the world's attention? Well, they're going to have the world's attention at this event, looking up, right? Everyone's going to be watching. Not to say something will definitely happen. No one can predict that. But it's a possibility that while they're all looking up, something sideways over here, it's the great old thing that the enemy uses. Look over here while I do this. Okay, so I would be very vigilant about looking over here, everyone focusing on this while something over here happens. Potentially, God could use this moment, to do this as well. Don't forget, God uses the enemy. He has them on a leash. He controls the enemy. He uses the enemy on you. Okay, when he needs to. Okay, so we see in Job that Satan has to come begging to God to punish Job. All right, he's on a leash. Understand? Satan has no power. He's not this great figure that has all this power. Okay, yes, he might be the prince of the power of the air on this world. Okay, but he has no power. Right? He only has the power that's been given to him. All right, and that power that he has, he will use to the full extent. Okay, that little bit that he has, that dominion he's been given, all right, in order to, over the flesh and all the wickedness. He'll corrupt this world to the nth degree. He'll continue to do that. And so when everyone's looking up here, I hazard a guess to say something's going to go on over to the side over here. How do you make an elephant disappear, divert everyone's attention over here? And it's the same sort of thing. So I think we could see some things begin to happen from this. I do see this as a marker, like in the 2017 events, where at the time we didn't actually see anything happen, but it was the beginnings of, like we saw just after, right, after that period. It was only not even 2 years after, we saw the start of this thing, all right, the time of tribulation for the world. And so we see this marker, another potential marker happening here, or the ending of the marker, the Aleph and the Tav, right? The two symbols that refer to, one being the ox, right? The Aleph, the ox. And so we see that's referencing God, the beginning and the end. Or it's kind of like putting your stamp on something. All right, and he's using his calendar to put his mark on things. He's putting his seal on it, so we know it's from him. And so it's undeniable this is coming, and it adds up. The numbers add up to all the other events. So if this is wrong, then all the other eclipses and events are wrong too, which I think is not possible, to be honest, without being naive. But I don't think the enemy has that sort of control across the world. You know, maybe they have some sun simulators up there, maybe they have other things going on, but across the world, they don't give them credit for being able to do that at all. So watch carefully, all right? Love your families, spend time with your families. Make sure that you are walking ever so carefully. The enemy will be out, right? Even on this channel, there'll be people popping in here, all right? At times, no doubt. We get them occasionally. There'll be people popping in here trying to disrupt the readings. We'll still get that sort of stuff. We get people trying to email you. You get people trying to message you. You get all sorts of things that'll happen, right? And so you have to be discerning because, you know, you might have a brother and sister emailing you, or you might have someone else emailing you. So you have to be careful, all right? We have to be careful and understand that as well. So keep your circles tight, guys. Keep them small. But obviously keep fellowshipping, but just be really careful any changes that you make during this time, because you don't want to trip over it at any point like this. All right, so trust in God, know that he's going to get you there. Believe, have faith, right? He's going to get us there. He's going to get us there, but we have to believe even when he's silent with us. We don't hear him. We don't feel like he's there. We feel like he's acting in other people's lives more than ours. Okay, we don't need to think like that. He's operating in our life every day. He's with us wherever we go. When he's silent, he's watching. It's like you need to make decisions. Okay, when he's silent, he's watching to see what you're going to do when things pop up. Are you living by the word? Okay, situation pops up, you don't know how to contend with it. You go into the word and you see, how do I contend with this situation? You apply that, okay, and then you realize that it was a test. It was a test to see what you were going to do. And so this is the sort of stuff I'm talking about is, you know, don't worry about what people say about you, what people think about you right now. They might think you're extreme or all these sorts of things. They might think you're losing your mind. Okay, but this is serious stuff. The times that we're in now, we must be absolutely sober. We must be watching. We must be, you know, staying in prayer for each other, interceding for each other, bearing each other's burdens. Okay, walking in obedience to him. And obviously we're about to read his word now. So I share this with a heavy heart because, you know, I have suspected this year was going to be something important, but now I'm even more so convinced that, you know, we're at this point where by the time this year's over, something's going to happen. You know, something surely is going to happen by the time this year is out. And that's not much time, all right, when we're talking about the potential start of maybe the tribulation period. Okay, so whatever you believe, other people believe it's already well into. Some people believe that trumpets is already underway. Some people believe other things, and you're all welcome to believe, and based upon your own study, okay, study to show yourself approved. This is the thing, we come together to try and understand, and so I'm not going to force my opinion on anybody, but I tell you what, I'm going to be gearing up like I'm gearing up for war. You know, I'm going to be gearing up in the sense of my walk. I'm going to make sure that I'm reading, that I'm getting enough sleep, that I'm, you know, eating better, that I'm, you know, following those commandments, those things that come in the spirit, you know, those nudgings, those inclinations. I'm going to be trying to follow all of that. And just staying close to God right now. I don't want to trip over at this point either. All right, so I'll leave it there and we'll start reading. So welcome everybody. Deuteronomy 3. When we took possession of this land at the time, so we were reading about how they conquered the Og in Bashan, and so we're also reading about how this was repeating, right? We saw this repeating back in Numbers as well. So, and it's reflecting back on what happened. So it's sort of recounting the story that we're seeing here. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, so we see, when we took possession of this land at that time, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites the territory beginning at Arer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and half the hill country of Gilead with its cities. The rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, that is, all the region of Argob, I gave to the half tribe of Manasseh. All that portion of Bashan is called the land of Rephaim. Okay, so we're learning about how these giants, and the Og of Bashan was a giant because he was like 4 meters tall. All right, he had a bed that was 4 meters tall, so he's massive. And we see that was 13 feet, right? 13 feet tall. And so we see that, what I was going to say was, let me just bring something up quickly while we talk about this. 1 second. Just for anyone new here who hasn't come across this before, this concept. Just got to find the book of Enoch for a sec. Alright, so if we just got to go to the index here and just find the there's some good reference pictures in here. Just let me find them. So it's down the bottom. So evidence of giants down here. So I'll spare the reading, but there's one picture that you've probably already seen. But so this is the thought of the original giant sort of height, right? That they would range from anywhere from like upwards of 15 feet all the way up to 36 feet in the old times before the flood. And so it seems like this was like a mummy that was found. He was like, what was he like? He was over 12 foot tall and he had 6 toes. All right, this one, he's a real body, real mummified body. Okay, so similar size to what we're seeing here. We see in these images here, from the Sumerians, we see the size of the rulers is always like being depicted as this godlike size as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff. This is another one, a very famous photo as well, which was around, I believe, around the same size, about, I think they're about 12 feet as well. So we're seeing this size kind of evidenced, in some pictures and other things from the past, and if you start to dig, you realize that what it's talking about here is like, it seems very obvious that the Nephilim, as it says in Numbers, which are the people in the land, the sons of Arak, I think they're called, Arak, A-R-A-K, I think it is. Well, they're also known as something else here, but they seem to be descendants upon those original giants that were around in the time of Noah. And so we don't know much about them. We don't know how that they came to be or how they came to re-emerge, but it seems that they were around in this time when the Israelites were going through the wilderness. Okay, and then they found bodies all the way up until recent, the 1800s, 1900s. But the Smithsonian Institute, okay, their job has been to gather up all that evidence and to seize it all. And that's what they've been doing, all right? They're basically an organization dedicated to covering up of these things. And so that's why, for many it's probably a new thing, or many might see it as foolishness or ridiculousness, the concept of there being overly large people. But the Bible tells us so, and the Bible tells us that these Nephilim, their spirits would still, cause evil in this world, on the earth as well. So we know their existence in spirit form is still here, but we don't exactly understand, or on this channel we don't understand yet how that came to be. We haven't come across that understanding yet. So yeah, very interesting. But Og of Bashan was 4 meters, 13 feet. Okay, so the Masonite took all the region of Argob, that is Bashan, as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maccathites, and called the villages after his own name. Havoth, as it is to this day. To Machir I give Gilead, and to the Reubenites and to the Gadites I gave territory, from Gilead as far as the valley of Arnon, with the middle of the valley as a border, as far over as the river Jabbok, the border of the Ammonites. The Arabah also with the Jordan as the border, from Shinnereth as far as the sea of Arabah, the salt sea under the slopes of Pisgah on the east. And sorry, I didn't actually address your comment, Christina, so thank you for saying, you said we understand, we'll be watchful. Very good. Yeah, I do. I recounted the dream that I had, which when I in my mind last year, when I determined we had another year to go, okay, I had a dream where it was quite a fearful dream actually. I was inside a building searching for my tools, and inside a house, and there was a thief outside, and he had his face kind of pressed up against the glass, looking through the window, and I could hear his thoughts, and he just said, I'm going to come in there and disable your alarm system. All right. And I knew in my spirit what that meant was, I'm going to disable your ability to watch. All right. I'm going to turn off your ability to let people know, right, when things are happening, if you're not watching. All right. So I saw that man. I saw him clearly. I saw his appearance. Right. And I know just in the way that the dream went that it was a massive warning dream. That was a dream. It was a warning dream. And then I saw a woman walking afterwards dressed in the color of sapphire, and I still don't understand that. I know I always thought it was to do with the tribe of Judah, because I thought Judah was a sapphire, but after looking into it, I think Judah's a different stone, so I'm not sure. But I just remember the fear that fell over me then, because I'd listened to man, right? I listened to another channel, and they were saying, yeah, we've got another year to go, it's all good. All right, and the Lord led me to stop watching the channel and to go out on my own and study myself. All right, and to stop listening to other people, like just completely and utterly depending on other people, I should say, because we have to help each other, of course. But at the time, I was just solely dependent on everybody else for my information. I was not using my own brain, right, to go out and my own ability to study and my own time. I was just like searching up videos of everybody else and go, who's got the answer, you know? And so that's when I started studying, because I realized he was saying, you know, you really don't have the time that you think we have. Like, you really don't, you know, and I'll disable your alarm system. If you're not watching, I'll come upon you like a thief in the night. All right. If you're not watching, I'll come upon you and it will shock you. All right. And you will have, look, honestly, like the fear, the understanding of the fear of God is that anytime he could just whoosh, you know, just cut you off. Anytime he could cut you off. All right. And I didn't pick up on this, but we were talking about this yesterday with a brother who was talking about the story of Jonathan. All right. And the story of Jonathan, and you know, we'll have to read that again so I fully understand it. But we see what happened to Jonathan and why Jonathan died, and it's actually, I didn't pick up on it when we first read it, but it was about him, you know, him sort of floating between sides, picking sides, right? And he chose his father, he chose Saul over David, and as far as I understand, and he died, right? He was killed with his father. He died, right? And he died in his sin too, right? So that was Jonathan, the one who David loved, right? Really close to. So I need to read that story again, but you know, there's a whole bunch of things that, you know, there's plenty of people in the Bible that we see. Solomon's a great example. He had everything. He had wisdom. He had all these things, right? He was blessed beyond measure in his walk to be the king and to do what he did. Okay, and then when he sinned, all right, and he built these altars and he was misled, you know, the kingdom was divided in two. The Israelites were cut in half. Like the entire kingdom was cut in half. God delivered that judgment, and you know, they were divided. Okay, and that's when it all went downhill from them after that. And so we see that God will, you know, raise up enemies, armies, other kings in order to teach his own people. So we must fear God, right? We must fear him and not just assume that, you know, not just assume that we can coast. We must show we're fully dedicated and submitted to him. We must show that we really are in our faith and on his side, and we're not wavering between. We can't be lukewarm in this hour. So that's what I'm saying. If we're going to waver in between our lives and him, then we're going to end up, potentially going through some of this tribulation. There's also some other evidence that the 144,000 might be split up into two groups as well, an initial group and another group. And so that's also something to understand too, is that, there could be a second group that go through some tribulation, and most people are running around saying, I'm one of the 144, I'm one of God's this and that, okay? And we understand that he's building an army, okay? And those that are walking in step with him, you can have that, you should have that confidence in your faith to be able to believe that you are walking with him. But we also want to make sure that we're not complacent and we're not just going around proudly, spending our time telling everyone we're in this, and then we find out all of a sudden we're not. Okay, we'll find out we became prideful and we sinned and we basically fell short. So, I don't want to make this too hard for anyone or burden anyone. Okay, but what I'm just saying is we really just need to make sure that we are, sober. All right, what's sober? If you've ever witnessed something, right, you've ever been in a situation, you've witnessed something shocking, it sobers you up. Okay, it wakes you up and you're awake. Like you were truly awake and you were just alert and you're looking around, right? You're making sure that everything's all right. And that's what he wants us to be. Okay, when you're just like cruising along, day comes, a day goes, okay, you're not like that. But when something happens, like when we see the next global event happen, for example, okay, everybody's going to be sobered up massively. Okay, everyone's going to, be puckering up because it will literally wake everybody up, right? It'll wake everyone up in that time. So yeah, it's not about being fearful, but it's like everything we've talked about in the last few months, all right, is now we have to harness that and we have to be ready now. Okay, we have to be absolutely just like serious about this and not feel that burden, but feel that seriousness of it, because anyone that is here too, right? Like, I'll be honest, guys. I'll be absolutely brutally honest. Is that, if I cause one of you to stumble, like one person here to stumble, your blood is on my hands as well. You understand? We're all in this together. Okay, just by my talking and sharing of the word, and if I'm showing anything, I'm unbeknownst teaching, right? And by that means, if I cause somebody to stumble, okay, somebody's not awake, not alert. If I pass the warning on and you've not heeded it, that's different. Okay, but if I never pass the warning on and then somebody stumbles under something I've said, something I've taught, for example, then your blood is on my hands, you understand? And so it's not me selfishly saying I don't want anyone's blood on my hands. It's not that. It's I don't want anyone to stumble, because, that's not what I want for anyone here. I don't want even my worst enemy, I don't want them to face that darkness. And so I warn you today with a heavy heart of that understanding that this could potentially be it. And so I'm not giving a date, I'm not giving a time, I'm not giving any of that. Okay, but I'm giving you a season and saying from here on, don't waste a moment. Don't waste a moment. And pray. When you pray fervently. Pray from your heart. Pray truthfully. Okay? Any bitterness towards any brothers or sisters that you have, I fixed up one of my, wasn't a bitterness, but it was an unresolved thing of the past, got fixed yesterday. God brought us back together, me and another brother. All right? And he resolved it. It was amazing. We spoke for like 5 hours. All right? So resolve all your differences, all your things that have happened in the past. Okay, get them resolved, get them sorted out. Whatever it is that you've got hiding under that under that blanket, okay? Get it resolved and sorted out, and just be walking as diligently and steadfastly as you can, and everything will be fine. But for the people of the world, pray for them, because they're going to be caught unaware as these things start unfolding. And I truly stand by, even more so, what we talk about with the two witnesses, what we talk about with the time of being sent out. I still believe that'll happen under the cover of darkness. When darkness falls, that everyone will be that'll be a time where you'll be lights. That's the time where you'll be moving. And I don't know what that looks like, so I can't answer that. But I believe that wholeheartedly, is that during this there will be 3 days of darkness, representing the 3 days of the death of Jesus, right? The 3 days of that time. And then we see that three, in Matthew, I think it is, we see the moment on the cross where there's an earthquake and it goes dark for three hours, I believe. So honestly, yeah, these things coming, be prepared, understand that his people that are sent out, right? His people that are sent out are going to be imbued with his power, imbued with what I believe to be, the spirit of Elijah and possibly the spirit of Moses, right? Imbued with this power, all right? And we see John the Baptist was walking in the spirit of Elijah. I believe the same thing is going to happen again, right? And so you want to be found worthy of that. You want to be found worthy to walk in that power, and that will be given to those who, as we see, who kept his commandments, all right? That he will spare you from that hour of trial. And you want to be spared. You want to be found like that. We all do. Okay, out of all of us here now, none of us can profess we know that for sure, that will be our portion. None of us can say that. We can say, God said this to me and that, okay, and we can, but we can't say until the moment occurs that's because it's up to him. It's up to him what our story is, right? And so I'm not saying to you that anyone here is going to hell or anything like that. But what I'm saying is you don't want to slip up at any time, and you don't want to, you want to be found, in that state of worthiness, that state of readiness, that state of like doing all you can. He knows we're not perfect, right? He knows we're imperfect. He knows He knows who we are better than ourselves. Okay, but where's your heart at? And so we're going to have to be of complete and utter servitude, right, of service to others in this case. So if you are sent out, right, your life is not your own, you understand? Like you will literally, in this whole time that you walk in that period of 3.5 years, you literally will not have, you will not be your own. Okay, you'll be literally at service to others, often in probably the most terrifying situations for them, while you're at peace, right? But you will experience that persecution. Everyone will hate you, right? We've spoken about. So we have to ready ourselves for that. You have to ready yourself for everyone hating you. You have to ready yourself for that persecution. And so it may not play out exactly as we think it might. We just have to wait and see. So yeah, don't be caught unready. Don't be caught without oil in your lamp. Okay, continue to strengthen your faith. Get serious. Okay, put aside any wickedness of the world. Get rid of it. Right? If it's something that represents death and destruction, get rid of it out of your life. If it's something that represents horror, get rid of it out of your life. Something that represents the enemy, get rid of it. Okay, walk with God and just continue forward in this, however much time we have left, and don't have him pull your alarm system if you're running a channel or anything. Don't just assume you have this big bucket of time, right? Because remember, you're not your own anymore, even now. Okay, you've been purchased now from day one. You're purchased of your salvation, and he's put you through this process of discipleship, right? We're all going through this learning to become disciples of Christ and how to walk as the disciples did. The 12 disciples represent authority, okay, and judgment. They represent that the king's courts, the 12 seated on the throne judging the tribes of Israel. We see that with the 24 elders as well, right? We see that he had his people, and I learned yesterday what happens with the 72 servants is actually fall away. That's part of the story, is that with the 72 servants actually fall away, and then it's remaining with the 12. So there's a few other things in the story I've learned since yesterday in a discussion we've been talking about. But my point is that, I wouldn't be saying this message to you now if it wasn't for all of us to hear. And so this channel, let's everyone on this channel, let's be ready. Let's not worry about what everyone else is doing. Just focus on Jesus. Focus on your walk. Okay, focus on helping each other and serving others, of course. Like, continue, if you're helping others in whatever way, continue to do so. Don't just stop everything because of this warning, but just continue and focus solely, divert all your attention on Him, asking Him for the answers, not anyone else. Okay, ask Jesus, ask God for the answers. Okay, pray, seek Him in prayer, and ask Him to answer your questions, and seek Him from now on. Draw as close as you can to Him, and then whatever date this happens or this starts, or these things start to be noticed, then you won't be caught unaware. So, yeah, I think I've got it out of my system now. I think it's but I'll continue to read. So, when these things are in our hearts, it's heavy. I feel the heaviness that I felt when I had to share the word about the rapture thing, right? And so, the other thing that came up yesterday was, we're talking about the agreeance of, there's when all His people are sent out, there is this very clear kind of indication, somewhere that you don't just send people out without them knowing what they're doing, right? We can agree on that. You don't send an army out without a brief. You don't send an army out without understanding, all right? And even if that, I guess my phone again, talking to me, probably listening to everything I say, recording it somewhere. You don't send a bunch of people out without any understanding or any warning, right? You don't. And so I think it's pretty clear that His people are going to know. They're going to know what to do, and they're going to probably go through something, all right, in order that they understand it. So while a rapture may not be biblical, which is a rapture indicates, everyone just gets taken. It doesn't follow or respect His harvest. It doesn't follow or respect, what's written in the Word. There is still a possibility that, there could be like this catching away of people for some sort of training or some sort of gathering, which I used to believe, and I still really feel like that could be a possibility as people are sent out. You're dealing with a God who's outside of space and time. All right, so no time could appear on the earth, and it could be, you could be standing before Him, like we see, the 144,000, there before Him. And so I'm not going to say that just because there's no rapture, there's no mass gathering, because that's unscriptural. Okay, it's like the Nicolas Cage dream I had the other day, talking about that Left Behind movie and things like that, and that Knowing movie as well. All right, they're both movies that supplanted seeds in people's minds to think of the rapture. So what I'm saying is that I don't believe there's a rapture, but I'm not denying the possibility that His people will be instructed before they're sent out, and they'll probably be involved some sort of gathering together. So that's an absolute possibility. And yeah, so I bring that forward now because I don't want to shut that down. I think that that's an absolute possibility, and it makes a lot of sense when you actually read Revelation and study it and look at some of the prophecies in Isaiah and Jeremiah and other things too. It's very interesting. very interesting. So however it plays out, be ready. You know, that's the warning. I don't want to waste too much more of the time here. We want to read some of his word, but yeah, just want it to be crystal clear. That as of today, walk like every hour matters, every moment matters, and don't take anything for granted, and just be super protective of yourself. All right, super protective of any unusual behavior or anything that just comes out of nowhere. Just be really careful, okay? But make sure you're showing love and you're showing kindness, and that you're not being paranoid and you're not doing all that. But just be really careful, okay? We don't want to transgress right now. We don't want to become prideful right now, okay? We don't want knowledge or information to puff us up and make us feel like, hey, I've got the answer. Okay, I completely am honest with you, is that this is a draft of my own study, and I bring that to you basically with that great big disclaimer. And obviously there was a brother as well, Eric Rickman, that I credit for several parts of that actually, that I completely and utterly missed. So give that brother some love as well on his channel. And while we disagree, we've drawn some different conclusions. He thinks that the 6 seals already happened. I disagree. I think that that's yet to happen. But anyone's to say who could be right or wrong. All right, so I'm completely comfortable with if I'm wrong, but I'd be foolish to not say that these events don't mean anything. They completely line up with timings of things, and it's just uncanny. So yeah, be ready. Absolutely. Let's continue to read. And I commanded you at the time, saying, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All your men of valor shall cross over armed before your brothers, the people of Israel. Only your wives, your little ones, and your livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall remain in the cities that I have given you, until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as to you, and they also occupy the land that the Lord your God gives them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you may return to his possession which I have given you. And I commanded Joshua at the time, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done to these 2 kings. So will the Lord do to all the kingdoms into which you are crossing. You shall not fear them, for it is the Lord your God who fights for you. And the 2 kings he means is the Og of Bashan and the king, what's his name? Sihon. Okay, so those 2 were handed over. Okay, they were handed over. Where did I get up to? Down here. Yeah. They were handed over by God, because it is the Lord your God who fights for you. Okay, so the important point that I missed the other day too, that came up as well yesterday in my talks, which is absolutely spot on, is that when we try and will something into existence, or when we try and fix things ourselves that are broken in our lives, or we try and there's clearly something that's been completely and utterly messed up in our lives, and we try and go out and fix it, and we keep fixing it, and then we realize that we're actually not getting anywhere, and we end up face planting because we make no progress, and we just end up going backwards. Okay, it's a good indicator that what we're not doing is we're not putting it in the hand of God. We're not saying, take this, go to battle for me, war for me, because we're not trusting in him to do it. We're trying to do it by our own hand. Okay, so I learned this lesson recently myself, is that we're constantly trying to we're trying to save our family members, we're trying to save our loved ones, we're trying to do all these things, and we constantly keep hitting them with the Bible, keep trying to fix it, right? And we keep going back to Charmaine, this deals with our eternal situation. Thank you, I didn't see that. And Christina said, I'm certainly going to look at what you have presented, also keep watching. Yeah, so I will share an in-depth video after this weekend, or whenever, in more detail. It might have changed since then. But yeah, I felt the absolute burning need to share that with you guys this morning. But just as I was saying, like we try and pursue this, we try and secure our salvation of our family members and those that we love, those that don't want to listen, those that mock us, scoff us, laugh at us, other things. Okay, and we get to a point where we're just like, we're literally tried everything, we've done everything, we've been down that line. We don't give up on them, all right? We have to have faith. Right? We have to have faith and pray for them and continue to intercede for them when they can't intercede for themselves. But what we need to do then is to just place it in God's hands and just say, every time I try, I just fail. Right? Every time I try to do this, I fall short. Every time I make this, make this about me and being able to solve this, or me on this crusade, I fail. Right? And God's sitting back realizing, you haven't trusted me yet. You put your trust in me and you have faith in me. Okay, then I can go to war for you. I can then, you're allowing me. Then you're not fighting me anymore. All right, you're actually fighting God when you do that. Is your lack of trust in Him in the situation, even though your heart might be in the right place. Your heart might be in the right place, but you demonstrated a lack of trust. And so through that lack of trust, you're actually hindering the progress that could be made if you just put it in His hands and just trust Him. And so that's the other lesson, right? The pass on is that, whatever situation you find yourself in, when you beat your head up against the wall at it and you've continued and you've tried to resolve it over and over again, you need to put that in God's hands and just surrender to Him and just say, please take it off me. Okay, I'm absolutely done on this. I can't, I realize that, your will be done. Okay, your will be done, and your timing as well. So put it in His hands, and then we can relinquish that, that weight that comes with that, because we do carry the weight of others. We carry the burden of others. All right, and that's what we're talking about. We're bearing each other's burdens. Okay, you have a brother or sister, okay, in the faith, who's struggling really badly, and you're trying to help them, or you might even have to find yourself counseling them, or whatever it might be. Okay, you're bearing their burden. You're carrying some of that weight with them. Okay, and you're praying with them, and you're through your own through the love that you feel of God, and through your own actions of helping that brother or sister, you're carrying that weight. So, but what you have to be careful of too, as we spoke of, is you don't want to be carrying the weight of those who truly aren't brothers and sisters in Christ. Right, as we've spoken on here, you get witches, you get people who are into all sorts of funky stuff. Okay, they come along and then they basically schmooze you, and then you end up thinking that they're for you, but they're not. Right, and I've fallen into that trap in the past too. So know that they're your brother and sister in Christ. Know that they're operating out of the same spirit. Know them by their fruits. Okay, discern them, and then once you know that they're your brother and sister, then make sure you don't go against the God's anointed. All right, make sure that you understand that they are, and that you don't turn your back on them when they need you, and vice versa. So it is a difficult walk. It is a difficult thing. We have to hand things to God and just say, take it from me. I'm spent. All right. And sometimes that's the point where we learn the lesson. Right. We just eventually get to the point where we realize I've tried everything and it failed. And He's like, yep. And then you hand it to Him, and you realize then it's in His hands. And so you have to have faith that, one day that situation, that person might just come to Christ, and all will change. So even if that means judgment, tribulation, and other things, if it saves their life, then they're in God's hands. Okay, so you shall not fear them. He's talking about these kingdoms, because the Lord your God, who fights for you, He fights for us. He fights our battles for us. Moses forbidden to enter the land. And I pleaded with the Lord at the time, saying, O Lord God, you have only begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. Where are we? So, Christina, I just want to get my life together and do what. Begin each day to change and serve him better. Always want to keep his word and signs at hand to be prepared. Yeah, so the thing is about getting your life together is that, your life will be surrendered. So, like you'll find that no matter what you try in your personal life, okay, it's all about your walk with him. And so that's the difficult thing, is that it's the suffering that is the true part of our walk with him. And so, some people will have, family situations, of course, different than others, where they'll be surrounded by believers and other things, and others won't. And so you're going to have to discern what that means, but understand that, yeah, like we have to surrender to his will, whatever that is. And you'll be led into that if you seek him. Zadok priestly calendar states April 2 is Passover, so I'm watching this date around noon. I don't know, I'm praying because I believe this is an important year. Yeah, I haven't followed any of the Zadok calendar. I don't know. I basically just my understanding is following the eclipses and the blood moons and the new moons, based upon his creational time. So, I mean, yeah, I haven't looked into the Zadok priestly calendar at all. So, but I will have a quick glance at it just so I understand what you mean. Yeah, I'm still learning all this stuff too. So, yeah, definitely agree on the important year. Yeah, it's absolutely an important year this year for sure. So, but yeah, I will have a little look into it, Charmaine. Thanks. Yeah, I'll check it out. So, like I said, when we ran communion for Passover, we're basing Passover upon. We understand that there are a range of reasons why we're basing Passover on that particular date, and so therefore, the upcoming, there's like 7 calendars that are common amongst what people are using at the moment. So, but I think that the reason I believe so strongly and he uses the planets, the conjunctions, the eclipses, blood moons, the sun passing through the constellations, because he says that he actually talks about that openly in the book of Enoch, for example, about that was what its purpose was for. But then he talks about it in Genesis as well for the signs and seasons. Like it's a way of always looking up and knowing like time. So he gave us a clock, right, and a calendar. He gave us that and they used to use a sundial for the times of the sun, and so he gave us that because you don't need technology, you don't need anything. Everything is given there for the calendar, and so what we're given is seasons of the year, so we know the times as they fall. We're given these moons in order to understand that we count the moons, right? Where there's a count between the moons to understand the days of the month. So we're given the ability to determine the months and the seasons, okay? And then we're given these in his books in the Bible. We're given the signs, that are in the heavens. And I believe that the signs are, when he says look up when these things come to pass, he's actually referring to, the signs will be in the heavens where he said they were. Okay, so that's why I believe when we see the angels pouring out the bowls and these other things, all right, I believe that the angels are the representation of those signs. So we can't see in the spirit realm, okay, we can't see the actual pouring out of the bowls, but we're given the signs in the heavens, okay? So we're given the heavens to look at, and should we be curious enough to look at that, then we, it's like, I didn't speak about it this morning, but he talks about, for example, there's a few things, like he says we'll tread on the adder, he says we'll tread on the lion and the adder and the young lion and the serpent. Okay, and when you realize that in one of the Psalms, is that when you look just next to Betula or Virgo, all right, there's the young lion, there's the adder, there's the lion, okay, and referred to as the serpent. And so we're given this understanding that the that the adder refers to the serpent. And then we go into another passage and we're given about the dragon living in the sea. And then we see that in the heavens, there's a sea, right? There's a bunch of the constellations that are sea, are based upon the sea, and there's a river Eridanus in the sky in the heavens as well. So we're given this like heavenly kind of layer of the Bible where, you know, he's like giving us the time periods, but we have to discern them, and they're so like they seem so outside of our understanding that without the Holy Spirit we can't do it. We can't discern it without the Holy Spirit. We can't even like get started without the Holy Spirit. It's just not the way we think. And so, you know, it makes you take a whole different look at the Bible, especially the book of Revelation, for example, when you start to see that many of these things are literally just up there. And so, yeah, it's very, very interesting. But you know, he had to make a calendar for us. He had to make a way for us to have time and keep time, so we knew, right? We could keep a record of time. And so his clock up there, right? His clock is never wrong. It's our interpretation of his clock that's wrong. So we keep time on earth here based upon a calendar or a log that we keep, but you know, we've lost the art. We see that Moses, right, and all the others, there's evidence that they all knew how to interpret the signs in the heavens. Okay, that they knew how to interpret those signs, and that's been something that's been lost over time or corrupted or changed, you know. And so now Satan wants people to get into astrology and go and like tell the future and do all these things through your horoscopes. Okay, he's taken that astrology, it's corrupted it, and it's made a whole bunch of people fear looking up at the heavens. They're scared to look up at the heavens because they see it as astrology, and so therefore they'll keep their head down, right? And what did he say? When these things come to happen, look up. All right. So what as Christians, what we have to do is understand, well, what does astrology mean, and what was the original, Masoretic Hebrew astronomy? What was that? Okay, it was simply the heavens declare the glory of God. We look up, right? He created all of that to show us his glory, right? He created all of that, so every time we looked up at night, we would look up and we're looking up at what he made, all right? And that is an absolute sign of God, that he made that, everything in the constellations. Okay, it's a sign of intentional creation. But people deny it, and they say that no one can explain. They just say, oh, it's just a random occurrence of some big explosion. Yeah, well, why does it make pictures of things? Why are all these other things happening? Why are all these conjunctions and moments and perfect numerical order? Okay, is that random? No. Okay, it's not. And so we can demonstrate God purely by our understanding of his calendar, acknowledging that his calendar exists. And so, yeah, we have this thing with the calendar where, you know, we're all clutching to understand it, of course, because we want to know, we want to understand. And so that's the thing, like, it's all up there. The whole Bible is up in your sky right now. There's a story of everything, right? It is up there. Like the altar's up there. Like there's literally, like, you know, there's a lion, the young lion, the adder, the serpent, the dragon. Okay, there's David, all right? So David is actually represented, if you actually have a look. David's actually, and you wouldn't think so until you start digging into it, he's actually represented as in Capricorn. When David hides and he puts on the goat skin, the thing, he covers himself with that, all right? And he's represented there in that story. There's all these stories of all the characters in the Bible in the heavens. Okay, they're all represented there. And, you know, we have the twins as well, the two brothers. We have all different things represented in the heavens, and it's all the story of the Bible. Okay, and so the Greeks attributed it to all these false mythological stories. You know, they've put up like a symbol, like there's like Hercules up there and stuff. That's all from the Greeks. It's not from God's original creation. But we see in the Bible he acknowledges these things, that what he created, he tells us what he made. And he set the sun, in the firmament and the stars. And we see that they never change, right? They orbit the earth doesn't orbit them, and so forth. So it's amazing, and I do I completely appreciate the complexity of the calendars. And so the calendars, of course, we all fight for understanding. So yeah, I don't downplay anybody's attempt to understand the calendar. I think it's a way of studying, acknowledging God and understanding the heavens he made. Right, he says that in his word. We've pointed that out many times here. So, just look up the word Orion, for example. Look up Pleiades, and he claims that he created them all. All right, so he tells us he created them all. And so we're looking at his handiwork as we look up, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. And those planets, I believe they refer to his angels, right? And those angels are meeting at these conjunction points when these events occur, when they're pouring out their bowls, when they're blowing the trumpets, when they're doing all these things. I believe that there's a heavenly sign to indicate those things as they happen as well. So we see the sign in the heavens, okay, which indicates the timing for when these things are going to occur. I think this is all part of his incredible story and part of his incredible thing that he's given us. He loves this. I just imagine he loves us looking at this, and trying to understand, right? And working together and trying to understand all of this. I'd imagine that he loves that, right? Because, he's given us this just as it's not about who figures it out and who makes it to the end, right? He's given us this to build our faith. He's given us to grow our faith and understand, how we can understand a little bit about him, and we can recount the Bible and who he is and his holiness, and he is a great creator, and he is the Lord of the harvest, and he's the great timekeeper as well. Okay, the Ancient of Days, and he's referred to as many different things. So I do this. I dig into the calendar not only to try and discern the time we're in, but also I do enjoy it. I do enjoy that there is that absolute mystery of God, and who can understand him, right? So we can only try. So yeah, we have to. It's not about who's right and who's wrong, but we do have to shout out when we find something interesting and let everybody know. So yeah, I will look into that calendar, Charmaine, and have a bit of a squeeze and see what I can find. So. Moses forbidden to enter the land, okay? So talking back to obedience, all right, speaking back on obedience, what did Moses do? He was supposed to speak to the rock. Okay, what did he do instead? He let his own flesh and his own emotions overcome him, okay? And he saw it as a moment to take it into his own hands, okay, and which took away from the holiness and the glory of God. He struck the rock twice. And he struck the rock instead of speaking to the rock. And the way that he did it was out of anger too. Okay, it didn't bring that glory to God. It didn't show God's holiness as well. He treated his people like he treated the Israelites there, like, he was above them, like he's being like prideful, if you will. As well, when Moses did that, he's like, all right, you're on. I forget what he says, like, but he's not happy, and you can see it. That's not what he was commanded to do. So, if we're commanded to do something specifically, we must do it. If we feel in our hearts to do something, okay, then we must do it. Moses forbidden to enter the land. And I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have only begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth, see little g here, who can do such works and mighty acts as yours? Please let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that good hill country in Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me because of you and would not listen to me. And the Lord said to me, enough from you. Do not speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and look at it with your eyes, for you shall not go over this Jordan. Okay, you understand that this was Moses was allowed to see God's back, his shoulder, right? Moses' face was radiating from being in the presence of God. Moses was likened to being in somewhat of relationship as a friend to God. But in God's righteousness, okay, and in his character, we see it doesn't matter because he didn't do what was commanded of him. Okay, remember what we were reading the other day? You're my friend if you do what I say, or Jesus said. Okay, you're my friend if you keep my commandments. If you do what I say, you're my friend. Okay, and we see here, all right, it doesn't matter. All of that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you suck up to God, how much you say, wash things with butter, how much you say with your lips. Okay, it's not that at all. It's actually what you do. All right, it's what you do. It's how you demonstrate your faith, and how you demonstrate that in your heart and what you do. Okay, it's not about how much you do and all these sort of things, like trying to tick off some sort of list. No, but your actions demonstrate where your heart is, your faith is. All right, your actions are that demonstration. Okay, so if we are brought into the faith, okay, we receive his Holy Spirit and we just continue to live the way that we always did. Okay, in a carnal way, fulfilling the lusts of the flesh, desires of the flesh, in all different ways we could see, then we're basically, we're not demonstrating our faith. We're just demonstrating that, we don't really understand our faith, or we don't really understand what is pleasing to him. All right. So in order to understand that, we must study, and we must continue to read and obey and be doers of the word, not just hearers of the word. That's the important thing. It's easy to hear it, easy to agree with it, but it's so much harder to be a doer of it. So much harder to live in that way. When a situation comes across your path and you have to make the right decision and you have only a moment to do it, what decision are you going to make? Are you going to strike the rock, or are you going to speak to the rock? That's the important thing to understand, is that these decisions, okay, as we see with Moses here, this is why I say in the times we're in, we have to be very, very careful and examine ourselves. But these decisions, they don't go away. The result of these decisions. Yes, if we sin, our sin will be forgiven. Okay, but our decisions will have effects. They'll have consequences. If we go left or we go right, or if we go straight, we should be going straight, or trying to find which way is straight in our decisions. And so from here, this decision that Moses made meant that his fate was not to enter the land. All right, enough from you. Do not speak to me of this matter again. What do you say to God when he says that to you? Don't talk to me about this anymore, ever again. It means that no matter what you say, the judgment's already been made. The call's already been made. It's not up to you anymore. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and look at it with your eyes, for you shall not go over this Jordan. Okay, now you understand when you look at people in the world today, and you look at how they're living. All right, you have a look at how the times that we're in now. Okay, and where we feel the fear of God now talking about this. Okay, we feel the fear of God contemplating this. Well, for those living in the world now, we must pray for them. Because we understand that we have to intercede for them, because their decisions, they know not what they do. Right? They know not what they do. And those that do, all right, they don't fear God. Right? Those that know what they do, all right, and have intentionally blasphemed the name of God, which we see many people do, intentionally make a point of it, make a circus around it, make fun of him. There's lots of lots of celebrities in the music industry that make music videos with him up on a cross and mock him and all these things. Okay, they know what they do. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. Okay, but they don't fear God, because they think that with this power, or who they've sold out to, this devil, who has no power, no real power at all, he makes promises to them. He's like a swindler. He's like, yeah, come over here, buddy, you come over here, I'll give you everything you want. And he's like peddling evil, right? And they get tempted, and they're like, yeah, cool, okay. He's like, I'll make you a star, I'll make you a star. Come over here, just have sex with these 10 men over here, right? And then just do this and we'll film it, all right? And then we'll just keep that for blackmail. If you ever turn away from us, we'll use that on you. Right? And this is the stuff that happens, guys, in Hollywood. It's dead set real. And so they go, right, and they spend all their energy blaspheming the name of God, doing the most vile and horrible, wicked things they can do. That's what they do, right? And then people worship them and say, oh, that celebrity, I love him. And they don't see what he's doing behind the scenes. Okay, and they see that, and they copy that, they emulate that. So they become an idol or a god unto themselves. Okay, those people, they know exactly what they're doing. They've given in. They made a decision, right, to have everything now in this world, and to live in this way where they just get everything that their heart desires, their wicked heart desires, and they're just feeding and gorging on it. Okay, so that's the other side of the coin. To walk with Jesus is the complete surrender of yourself to the nth degree, to the point where he walked in his ministry, right? He walked in his ministry where he was just purely in the Father, walking for the Father's will, not his own at all, like none of his own will at all. He had, obviously, when he was hungry and things like that, he knew, I need to fast. This is what I must do, right? And so he would refuse food. He would refuse sleep. He would refuse anyone, he just kept going, right? He kept going the whole time. He suffered even throughout all that silently. He didn't go and tell people he was struggling, okay? But you can see it in the word that he was going through a lot at the time. He was also, right? He was also this picture of great joy and love as well at the same time. So he endured all of that. It was all sacrifice, right? He brought that sacrifice. He gave up on that entirety of his own life. He's like a sponge that was that was wrung dry, all right? He gave up everything, every last drop, okay? And so we compare the two walks, okay? One is that walk of sacrifice and persecution and people hating you and everything seemingly being at you. And then the other walk of, just going after everything that you could want. Okay, and somewhere in the middle is where you're lukewarm. Okay, this is the thing, to walk. Not many people are going to be able to accept that walk in the emulation of Christ. Not many people are going to be able to accept that. Many people, 80-90% of people are going to fall away, all right, when they realize that that's how they have to walk in order to, to do what is required here, in order to walk like him, okay? And that sacrifice many people aren't willing to make at all. So I highlight that because, it's sobering. It's really sobering and it's difficult. And, we all have different lives and other things going on. And, we don't want to be in this state of paranoia and shakiness because we're like, oh, I can't drink this water because God's going to be angry at me. Not at all. You need to know your salvation. You need to understand that. But what you need to do is understand that, through your testing, through the trials and the things to come, it's going to get worse from here on in. Okay? And so, it's like Jeremiah 12 is like the absolute best scripture for this that keeps coming up, all right? So, if you have raced with men on foot and they've wearied you, how will you compete with horses? And if in a safe land, which we're in now, right? We're in a safe land. Let me just bring the comments back up, sorry. If we're in a safe land now, you are so trusting. Okay. What will you do in the thicket of the Jordan? For even your brothers in the house of your father, even they have dealt treacherously with you. They are in full cry after you. Do not believe them, though they speak friendly words to you. Okay, there's a warning there. Okay? Even your brothers and the house of your father, even they have dealt like this with you. They are in full cry after you. Do not believe them, though they speak friendly words to you. It's a warning. Okay? It's a warning. It's a warning, absolutely, of, if you're weary now and you're tired now and you're suffering now, you wait till there's horses around you. You wait till it gets far, far worse. Okay, so people don't want to hear these messages. Like, people want to hear all the good stuff. They want to hear all the shiny stuff and the cute, cuddly stuff. But when we get to the bitter core of the message of what it is to walk and to follow Christ, and we start to contemplate these things, people start unsubscribing from this channel, for example, if I talk on this stuff, because they don't want to hear it. Right? They don't want to hear the truth. And we know, deep down it's the truth. When we study the word, it's the truth. And we know that this is not a journey for the faint of heart. All right, so absolutely not. And so that's a great scripture to remind yourself as well. Okay, so with Moses, we see that he made one mistake and it cost him everything. Okay, it even cost him his time was up. Okay, it cost him going into the land. He says, go up to the top of Pisgah and lift up your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward and look at it with your eyes, for you shall not go over this Jordan. So he allowed him to see what he would not inherit, but charge Joshua, and encourage and strengthen him, for he shall go over at the head of this people, and he shall put them in possession of the land that you shall see. So we remain in the valley opposite Beth Peor. Now he's saying, because of what you did, you can't go in there. Have a look. I'll give you a chance to see what you're missing out, what you missed out on. Now you need to die. All right, it's now your time to go sleep with your fathers. All right. So he's saying to him, and he gave him a warning before, because Aaron died, we see as well. Okay, but he gave him a warning before that your time is coming, right? And so he knows it's coming, and now it's here. And as a man, he has to accept that as a righteous man. So as we see at this time, there's a thing called Abraham's bosom, right? And it's basically a term that talks about where the faithful in Christ, when they died, where they would go in this kind of safe space, the safe holding space in Sheol. We learn about it in the book of Enoch. I haven't really spoken about it on here because I really didn't understand how to piece it together. But basically they would die and they would go to this holding place for the righteous, okay, and waiting until the time of judgment. And so, he obviously went there, okay, but he wasn't to continue on. That was the end of his journey. And he accepts it. He doesn't fight it. He accepts it and he goes, yes, okay. And he does as God, right until his death, he does what God instructs him. Okay, so this is the thing, is that you don't see Moses begging and pleading after this. He presents his case, the Lord rejects it, he accepts it, and he moves on. Okay, there's no budging from that. So you don't want to find yourself in a place of sin, for example, where the Lord says to you, no, well, you've done this, I forgive you, but, for that reason, okay, I think you need to, I think you have more, you need to gain more understanding, or you're not ready for this assignment that I've got for you. You don't want that to happen. I don't know if that's, how we would operate, but I'm saying you just don't want to risk that. Okay, whatever plan he has for you, okay, whatever it is, it's in his hands. He's in control of it. Understand? We're like the messengers. We're like the people who literally, we're just blessed if he uses us. We really are. If he just decides to use us, we're blessed that he chose to. But he's doing that to enact for his own reasons. Okay, if he uses us, that's wonderful. But he's doing that for his own reasons. He's doing that as part of his plan. Okay, So we just need to be in a position to be used by God. We need to be in that state of readiness. We can't be half toe in, half toe out. Otherwise, he won't be able to. All right, we won't be in that state. So, like we talk about, receiving of the Holy Spirit, we see, it's the testimony of Jesus Christ. It comes with spirit of prophecy. Okay, and then we see that, he's talking about those that receive his spirit and are saved, the holy priesthood. Okay, that anointing. So you have, by receiving his Holy Spirit, he has a plan for you, how to use you. And so we must walk towards him closer and closer every day. And, seeing this story with Moses, we are in the period of grace, yes, but I think there's a very strong lesson in that, that cost Moses everything, that mess up. Moses commands obedience. And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you. Okay, so he's strengthened here. And do them, that you may live and go in and take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor. For the Lord your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed the Baal of Peor. Okay, remember the Midianites? They married the men in Israel married the Midianite women, I believe, and so God sent a plague and killed a whole bunch of them. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are all alive today, because they were following other gods. See, I have taught you statutes and rules as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, whom when they hear all these statutes will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. But what great nation is there that has a God so near to it, as the Lord our God is to us, whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children, how on the day that you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, the Lord said to me, gather the people to me, that I may let them hear my words, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth. Okay? Fear me, and that they may teach their children so. And you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, while the mountain burned with fire to the heart of heaven, wrapped in darkness, cloud and gloom. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sounds of words, but saw no form, and there was only a voice. And he declared to you his covenant, right, which he commanded you to perform, that is the 10 Commandments. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord commanded me at the time to teach you statutes and rules, that you might do them in the land that you were going to possess. Okay, remember in the story, trying to think where it is, but it's like some people hear trumpets and some people hear the word, like hear a voice. And it's like some people, my sheep know the sound of my voice, right? Some heard the voice and some heard trumpets. But here, they heard the voice, right? They were his people. Idolatry forbidden. Therefore watch yourselves very carefully, since you saw no form on the day that the Lord spoke to you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Beware lest you act corruptly by making a carved image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground. All right, so if we look at, like, just as an example, right, like there's probably not an item in this world that doesn't have the mark of, the beast on it, or one of the marks of the beast on it. Like, I mean, the barcode, for example, is in my bottle of water. Okay, and it has six lines on it. The starting lines, the middle lines, and the end lines. Okay, and so for an example, like, you can just see that just about everything in this world is like every object to some degree. Obviously, things that are made from nature and other things aren't. But anything that has a barcode on it or anything packaged or whatever, it all has the exact same thing on it. So I do say it's impossible to get rid of all those things. You can't. You literally would just be you with your clothes on your back if you wanted to get rid of everything. But when he's talking about it here, he's talking about specifically about God's worshipping to, like carved figures or anything that was representative. So, and that it goes the same as celebrity worship, sports worship. You worship people's sports, celebrities in sport and other things. It's no different. It's still idolatry. Okay, it's okay to watch. I'm not saying it's not okay to watch sport. I'm saying that if you worship people and you have the things floating around of all these people, you're worshipping people. It's the same thing. The likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. Okay, so these carved images. Beware lest you raise your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the host of heaven, you be drawn away and bow down to them and serve them, things that the Lord your God has allotted to all the peoples under the whole heaven. Okay, so they're bowing down and worshipping the stars, like actually worshipping them, worshipping the sun. The Egyptians worship the sun god, and things like that. Okay. So this is the very thing we're talking about earlier with astrology. Okay, people worship these things, like they have all these backstories of all these things. Okay, what we're talking about when we talk about it is we're talking about it as a calendar, talking about it for signs and seasons. Exactly the purpose. We're not predicting the future. We're not looking at birth signs or things like that. Okay, you'll see that the Mazzaroth or Mazzaroth, however you say it, is a term used to indicate these this calendar, this seasonal calendar that's under the heavens. And so it was labeled in the Greeks as the zodiac and other things. Okay, but what Satan's done is package it up and basically make it its own thing. And so people using it as a form of divination and stuff like that. So while we look up and we look at the sky and we look at the eclipses and the blood moons and things like that, we're not to worship the creation, we're only to worship the Creator. The Lord has taken you and brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to a people of his own inheritance, as you are this day. Furthermore, the Lord was angry with me because of you, and he swore that I should not cross the Jordan, and I should not enter the good land that the Lord your God is giving you for an inheritance, or I must die in this land. I must not go over the Jordan. Okay, so he's telling them all now. But you shall go over and take possession of that good land. Take care lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and made a carved image, the form of anything that the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Okay, he's jealous of worshipping other gods. Okay, when you father children and children's children and have grown old in the land, if you act corruptly by making a carved image in the form of anything, and by doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, so as to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will soon utterly perish from the land that you are going over the Jordan to possess. You will not live long in it, but will utterly be destroyed. It will be utterly destroyed. And the Lord will scatter you among the peoples. Okay, here's that promise. And you will be left very few in number among the nations where the Lord will drive you. And there you will serve gods of wood and stone, the work of human hands, that neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. Okay, so these false gods. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him, if you search after him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in tribulation and these things come upon you in the latter days, times are in now, you will return to the Lord your God and obey his voice. For the Lord your God is a merciful God. He will not leave you or destroy you or forget the covenant with your fathers that he swore to them. Okay? He will not leave you or destroy you. Okay, so walk into obedience. Be sure about the side you're on. He'll never leave you. Okay, he's going to be with you. But in order to stand until the end, in order to endure, okay, we need to make sure that we are fully surrendered. The Lord alone. And so Moses accepts his death. He accepts it now. He knows he's going to die. It's a weight, isn't it? It's a weight knowing you're going to die, but he knows he's going to die. He knows he won't enter the land. He's spent all of that time, all right, getting everybody, leading them towards that place where they'll end up in that land. So you can imagine in his heart, he was probably really joyed to finally make it to the land, you know. But part of his journey was over then. And his journey was over then, and it was passing the mantle on to Joshua. And so, you know, he had to come to terms with that in his own heart and accept that was the will of the Lord and will of God, you know, Yahuwah. So the Lord alone is good. Is God, sorry, not good. The Lord alone, he is good. The Lord alone is God. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever happened, or was ever heard of. Did any people ever hear the voice of a God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as you have heard, and still live? Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation by trials, by signs, by wonders, and by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm? Okay, so God really introduced himself to the world here during these events. All right, during these events, he really introduced himself. If they hadn't paid attention already with Noah's flood and other things, all right, he really, you know, this has been remembered all up until now. All of this has happened, right? All of these moments were to glorify his name and to be remembered among the earth. So he wants people to acknowledge that he's the one and only God and one true God. And so he doesn't just send fire from the sky and do all these signs and things, because understand that if he made himself visible to all, right, immediately, is that there will be no faith. Okay, faith comes from unseen, what is unseen. Okay, it's the fact of believing without seeing. It doesn't come from sight. It doesn't come from, you know, all these things. They increase our faith. Okay, those things, of course, they will. If you have an encounter with Jesus, it's going to increase your faith in the Spirit. If you have an encounter with an angel, it's going to increase your faith in the Spirit, of course. Okay, because you're going to see, and it's very hard for you to unsee what you've experienced. You can't. Okay, but the point is that if he just appeared in the sky and everyone saw him right now, okay, for example, regardless of where they're at, okay, they'd see him and they would believe, but they didn't believe without seeing. So we have to understand that he doesn't work in the same way that we think. Right? So these great miracles that he's done these to glorify his name, but he's also done it so that we must believe that it occurred as well. Okay, and we must go back and believe in his word, because his word is our account of it happening. And so when we believe it in our hearts, and we believe it and we have faith, that's true faith. Okay, we hear the word and then we believe and we say, you know, that's real, you know, that happened. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. And so that's faith. Whereas if we just see and we're shown everything, and we're just shown everything from end to end, where's the faith there? So how is there testing? How do you know out of all your people who has a true heart for you? How do you know out of all your people who's going to follow you, who's going to stand with you through everything, and not just go from, like the Israelites did, and go from the best offer to the next best offer? Right, when Satan offers you a better offer, and he offers you a mansion during the tribulation, and you know, walking with God is like literally lying on the concrete. Okay, and then Satan offers you a mansion and a bucket load of food. You know, if only you turn, and you know, through following Jesus, you know, you're on the concrete without a home, while you minister to people, knowing that you're walking towards your death. Okay, not many people are going to be willing to take that up. Not many people are going to be willing to go through that. Not many people are going to be willing to do that. Most people will take the easy route. They'll take the food, they'll take the comforts that they know, that we depend on now, okay, and they won't be able to, continue. They'll stop. We're going to see a huge falling away when people realize the things that God's going to do on this earth, all right, and they're going to shock people. Many people are going to fall away because their rapture didn't happen, all right, because they still remain during the times, because they spent their time focusing not on His word and study and on keeping His commandments and loving each other and lifting each other up, but on bragging about their salvation and telling everyone how chosen they are, right? Telling everybody, how they're this and how they're that, and not humbling themselves. Okay, so the most dangerous thing we can do as a Christian, well, two things is one is being unkind to each other and tearing each other to shreds. Okay, and the other is obviously pride, being prideful and arrogant, right, and boastful, boasting about these things. If you're going to boast about, like Paul said, boast about God. Don't boast about yourself. Boast about God. Boast about how awesome He is and how He's done all these wonderful things in our lives. But don't boast about yourself. Don't say, I am the chosen one. I've come to tell you all these things. Not at all. Not at all. Running this channel, if I mess up in a bad way, He could shut this down in a heartbeat and just disable my alarm system and just put me aside and just use somebody else. You can just pick somebody else and just go, you decided to do this. It wouldn't be because, of like who He is, it's because of what I decided to do. I started, waving the sword around and things like that, being prideful. So, I want to give you guys confidence and understanding that in His word and what we read is what He's going to do. But, at the same time, we mustn't have complacency either. We must understand, trust in our salvation, but on the other hand, we must not be complacent too and bragging about how we're this and that. We see that too much in the community, in the body. We see too many people opening their mouths and bragging about who they are, okay, and how they're, this and that. And what it actually means is that God uses the foolish things of this world, okay, the broken ones in this world, the broken things of this world. He's not going to use those that exalt themselves. He's going to use the broken, foolish things. Okay, we have to then be broken, foolish things as well. And so we have to understand that we're nothing, right? We're just dust. And when we come to terms with that our life is exactly as He says, the life of man is short and it's just like a breeze, it's just like dust in the wind. It's like nothing. It's fleeting. That our lives actually, we attribute this great, humongous meaning to this time. Really, this time is a test, guys. This time, your life is a test. All right? Are you going to have true faith to the end? Are you going to have true faith, fully committed, dedicated to surrender and to not be tempted into the wiles of the enemy no matter what happens? Right? That is the test of your faith. That is the true walk of Jesus Christ. Walking as service, surrendering your will, surrendering your life to follow Him when He says, follow me. That's truly what the disciples had to go through, what they had to endure. Okay, we see the stories that highlight their learning and their understanding, and we say, oh, Peter, how could you not see this? They went through a lot, those men. They went through absolute a lot during that time. And they had the teacher, they had God there before them teaching them. Okay, and He was there to teach them, and they were there to serve as an example for us too. Okay, they died in horrible, horrible ways, in horrible circumstances as well, as did Jesus did. Okay, so He died in the most horrible way, but the disciples died in also horrible ways, walking in the same ministry that He did. Okay, so you have to let go of the fear and come into the acceptance like Moses, that when he says, this is your walk and your story is going to be a difficult one. It's going to be challenging. Are you ready to pick up and to take up that walk? Or are you going to go where the party is over on the other side, where everyone's making noise? about how they're getting up and out of here. Which side are you going to be on? I'm being honest here. This is deep, right? This is deep. Which side are you going to be on? And that's the real question we need to ask ourselves, and we need to be 100% sure of what we actually are committing to, because this is deep. Like this is really as deep as it gets. Okay, and this is the reason why the church is the way it is, run by Jezebels, completely and utterly driven by the Jezebel spirit across the world and other things. Okay, as we've seen recently, and there's a good video we posted probably about a week ago. Check it out on the community section. Okay, that is the state of God's church today. All right, that is the state of God's church today. Basically taking his word and just turning it into whatever and whoever, and they turn it into that God's a female. All right, that Jesus is a female. All right, that is the ridiculousness of what the church has become today. Where's his people? Where's the army? Where's the people that are not partying, that are like looking at this and fearing God and saying, man, he's coming back, right? And we have to walk, right, ever so carefully in order to be able to, keep his commandments. And it's difficult, right? It's difficult. It's challenging, but really, there's people, right, partying right now because they're about to get taken away. All right, whereas a whole bunch of people on this earth very soon are going to suffer and die. Okay, and we tried to warn them. These people are partying, thinking about we're going to be grabbed away, yay, and so they're making their own Jesus here. All right, they're making their own situation. Now we rejoice in our salvation. We rejoice that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is coming back. We know what it means. He's bringing a sword upon this earth. Okay, and he says in his word, anyone who celebrates the day of the Lord, I think he says like, woe to that man, or cursed to that man, because it's a day of darkness, of gloominess. All right, it's not a day of celebration. It's a day where this place is going to burn from, completely and utterly. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to be the messengers, right? We need to be his witnesses. And the thing that he wants us to do is to study, right? To demonstrate our commitment to learning his word, to demonstrate our commitment to walking with him, so we understand fully what we're committing to we're able to be prepared to be sanctified, to be practicing righteousness. Okay, because he's going to send people out imbued with his power on this earth. Who do you think he's going to send out? Is he going to send out the ones partying? The ones who have spent their entire time, right, the entire time, not focused on actually what he's teaching in his word and walking with him and suffering, okay, but instead prospering and teaching prosperity doctrine and other things, okay? Those people are going to get shocked, right? And I'm not judging them. I'm saying, forgive them because they know not what they do. But the true followers of Christ are few, are very few. Let's be real. There's not many true followers of Christ who will live and die, okay, in the way that the others before us did. Who will do it? Who will truly do it? Who believe it wholeheartedly? Who will do it? Right? And yeah, it makes me nervous talking about this too, right? Because I question: have I got what it takes? Have I got what it takes? I know that God is with me. I have full faith that He's with me, and I have full faith that you too will make it. But let's be real, right? Let's stop the nonsense now. And let's get serious about preaching this word to the people, getting it out to people in these final moments wherever we can. And let's stop, riding on this expectation that we just get this free ticket, all right? Because the disciples didn't, okay? The early fathers before didn't. Everybody's walked the same walk as witnesses. It's a difficult walk to walk with God. It's very, very difficult. It's not impossible. It's very, very difficult, and it requires a complete and utter surrender of you. Okay, that person with the name, okay, that might be your name, okay, but you are now being purchased and you are to surrender fully to him. Okay, he might ask you guys, he might ask you to just depart from everything you've got overnight. Okay, and truly you might say, yeah, I'll do it. But when it happens to you, truly are you going to do it? So think seriously on this. Think in deep thought on this. Meditate on this as you read his word and as you go about your day. Think deeply on this, because I believe in you guys. I know we can do this, right? But let's not be the ones who are complacent. Let's be the ones who are sober and vigilant. And be the ones that are sitting there, watching and actually really understanding the depth and the magnitude of the time that we're in. So, yeah, it's very, very important. So, the Lord alone is God. Fast now of the days that are past, which were before you, since the day that God created man on the earth, and ask from one end of heaven to the other, whether such a great thing as this has ever happened or was ever heard of. Did any people ever hear the voice of a God speaking out of the midst of a fire? I'm starting this again for a reason. As you have heard and still live. Or has any God ever attempted to go and take a nation for himself from the midst of another nation, by trials, by signs, by wonders, and by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great deeds of terror, all of which the Lord your God did for you in Egypt, before your eyes? To you it was shown, that you might know that the Lord is God. There is no other beside him. Out of heaven he let you hear his voice, that he might discipline you. Okay, we have to endure God's discipline. And on earth he let you see his great fire, and you heard his words out of the midst of the fire. And because he loved your fathers and chose their offspring after them, and brought you out of Egypt with his own presence by his great power, driving out before you nations greater and mightier than you, to bring you in, to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. Know therefore today, and lay it to your heart, that the Lord is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. There is no other. Okay, understand. All right, these very people that we're reading about that entered the land, okay, he raised up an army to scatter them because they disobeyed him. Okay, but now we're living in the time, okay, where he's gathering these very people spiritually back together again. He's uniting all things back into him in Ephesians 1, okay, that we see. He's uniting all things back again. Okay, all this time that's elapsed, right? This 2,000 plus years that have elapsed when they were scattered, or just 2,500, right? Around about that 2,400 number that we were talking about earlier. All right, that time, right? That's gone by. All right, that's how long, that this judgment went for. Like, that's how long, up until now it's taken for all these events to play out since their scattering. Since they were scattered, they were dissolved amongst the nations. They, went to the Mediterranean and throughout Europe and America, even places like Australia, Ireland, England, South Africa, you name it, everywhere. Right? The Israelites were scattered, and they just settled amongst the population and became the population, and so therefore the population or the nations, intermingled, all descended from them. All right, and genealogy doesn't matter in this case. It's about who believes in the Son of God, who believes in the acts upon the cross. That's all that matters. But my point is that his people were scattered, and he promised, right? He says in Ezekiel, right, 37, he says to bring these two trees back together, his two people, right? And that he will do that and make them one again. And that's what he's doing. We're living in that time. All this time has passed. Okay, many people have died, and we're living in this time now where he's assimilating everything, bringing everything back together for his plan, establishing his plan. So not only does the odds appear, right? You look at the chances of when you were born, and you look at the chances of when we're here now in this time. Okay, to be born in this little window, this little slither of time, is exactly the fulfillment of Ephesians 1. predestined, okay, for this time, as we talk about. The Word of God tells us that we would follow Him. Okay, the Word of God also tells us that many are going to fall away. So on one hand, understand, predestined, predetermined that you will follow Him, that you would make it. Okay, but you're given free will. So make sure that you do. Okay, so that's the thing, is understand that all of this wonderful story is now drawing to an end, drawing to a conclusion finally. And we're living in those days. We're living in those days where we're living in a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. We're living in that absolute depravity, right, where it's just week in, week out, it's getting worse. It's getting so much worse. Now we're living in a time where in classrooms, and this is no joke, we've spoken about this, there are people in overseas, in America and other places, in classrooms, right, that have identified as cats, and they have a kitty litter tray in a classroom, and I kid you not, they use that as their toilet, right? And the school has accepted that wickedness, and the parents have encouraged that wickedness because they identify as a cat, right? This is the freaking time that we live in, right? It's woeful. It's disgraceful. What parent would allow their child to act like that, to be like that, to take part in that wickedness? Yeah, this is the place that we live in, right? And the murder and all the other stuff with kids and that they do, right? We live in this place. As a parent, that deeply deeply distresses me when I heard that story. All right, there's kitty litter trays in classrooms. It's just absolutely one of the most disgraceful things. And you'll find it, you probably won't find it too much on Google, but you'll find it on BitChute and other places where it's not sifted. And BitChute's obviously a bit of a playground for the enemy, so I warn you about it too, is that, there are a lot of people on BitChute that are paid in order to promote fear, and that's what they do. They do it very well. So you have to be very careful, whatever platforms you use. There's either going to be censorship or there'll be paid shills of people that are paid to do it, but you will find the truth if you dig for it. Just don't dig in the kitty litter tray. Right, this is the time we live in. It's disgusting. All right, and it's wicked, and we're warned about this. Okay, so he says here, therefore you shall keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you today, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong your days in the land that the Lord your God is giving you for all time. Okay, cities of refuge. Then Moses set apart 3 cities in the east beyond the Jordan, that the manslayer, we're learning about this the other day, this place of refuge, if you accidentally or unintentionally kill someone, you're referred to as a manslayer. Okay, you're given the title of manslayer, and you go and stay in that refuge until the high priest dies, and when the high priest dies, you were then allowed to go back to your land. It's kind of like going to prison, but without the court system or anything. Now, if you go outside of your refuge, and somebody that, like somebody seeking vengeance upon the death that you caused, they can kill you, and there's no problem at all. Right? They can kill you, and it's perfectly justified. So you have to stay in that refuge, and that's that place that you're designated, and you live there until you live out your days until the high priest dies. So if the high priest is young, you've got a long time to wait. So Moses set apart 3 cities in the east beyond the Jordan. It's hard to believe, Charmaine, isn't it? Yeah, the things I was talking about before. That the manslayer might flee there, and anyone who kills his neighbor unintentionally. It's no more gross than the celebrity meat thing. Like no more warped than wicked than the celebrity meat thing, where you can literally order meat, burger patties with the DNA of celebrities, so you can eat the Steven Seagal or I'm really showing my age there, aren't I? I can't even think of any celebrities. Arnold Schwarzenegger, whoever, right? You can eat a burger made from their actual, cells, and the celebrities obviously have sold their, something in DNA in order to, to make money. So this company can then grow this, this thing from it and put it in the meat. That's depravity, right? And so that's just they're just two little things of millions of things going on right now. All right, you got to just look around and see this place. All right, it's messed up. It's so much more messed up than Sodom and Gomorrah was. All right, so we're living in this time where this place is going to just be completely and utterly turned upside down, and rightly so. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. So the manslayer might flee there. Anyone who kills his neighbor unintentionally without being at enmity with him in the time past, he may flee to one of these cities and save his life. Yeah. There's so much. This is the thing. There's so much of it. I only just point out a couple of things, and I don't actively go looking for this stuff. Like, I just come across it just in your travels. And Sister Sonia, she's probably the one who has the most insight into a lot of this stuff, because God's put it in her heart to warn in these ways, and she's on an 18th channel at the moment. If censorship isn't real, then why is she on an 18th channel? And so that's the thing, right? We have to support our brothers and sisters who are out there warning the people and telling them the truth of what's going on. So we all have different sort of things that we are inclined more to. Obviously, I'm inclined more to reading the Word, and obviously the heavens and that sort of thing is kind of my inclination. They're the two things that I seem to focus on a lot. And other channels do different things. Other people do different things. So I'm not an expert in all that stuff at all. But I can just see the wickedness, and it's hard not to see it, isn't it? Ezer in the wilderness on the tableland for the Reubenites, Ramoth and Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Manassites. So they're given these three cities. Introduction to the law. This is a law that Moses set before the people of Israel. These are the testimonies, the statutes, and the rules which Moses spoke to the people of Israel when they came out of Egypt. Beyond the Jordan, in the valley opposite Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, whom Moses and the people of Israel defeated when they came out of Egypt. And they took possession of his land. And they took possession of his land and the land of Og, the king of Bashan, the two kings of the Amorites who lived to the east beyond the Jordan. From Arar, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, as far as Mount Syrian, that is Hermon, together with all the Arabah on the east side of the Jordan, and as far the sea of the Arabah under the slopes of Pisgah. I will read this, and then we'll finish up for the day, guys. The Ten Commandments. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the rules that I speak. And Shabbat Shalom too. I didn't say it's a Sabbath day here, so I didn't say that either. So I was pretty heavy message this morning. So I feel better now getting it out. It's just these things we must do. Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the rules that I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and be careful to do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Not with our fathers did the Lord make this covenant, but with us, who are all of us here alive today. The Lord spoke with you face to face at the mountain, out of the midst of the fire, while I stood between the Lord and you at that time, to declare to you the word of the Lord. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up into the mountain, he said, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Okay, once again, he's done that for us. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Okay, another thing in our culture that's been encouraged. oh my, insert name here. Okay, in just about every movie, in just about everything, they you can see why it's in everything, because teenagers say it so much. They say it because they hear it in just everything and they emulate it. So we have to be careful what our kids watch, because once they do it, it's hard to break. But if you teach them the word, then they can replace that word with, whatever, but as long as they don't take his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. Okay, we see that he said, in the way of when Jesus took the bread and the wine, okay, in the communion that he held with his disciples, okay, that was a way of remembering him until he comes, okay. That was a way of remembering him until he comes. And so the original observance of the Sabbath day was focused around the Israelites coming out of Egypt, and then it became about Jesus, all right? It became about that, holding that communion, that observation. But I do keep a Sabbath day of a day of rest, if you choose to. I choose to, because I like to have that day, like today, for example, where I have a focus. It's a focused day of rest and combination of study as well. So, but not work. It's just a day I don't do any physical work. I don't hit the gym or anything like that. It's literally a day where I decide to focus on him, and if I'm with my family, I glorify his name through teaching my kids, or being a dad to my kids and things like that. So I spend some time with my family. They're away at the moment, so obviously I'm spending today reading to you, and studying today, and just continuing in that way. So that's my personal decision. That's not a burden to you. That's not something onto you. But once again, it helps me in my walk. It helps me to grow closer to him, because I'm once again pouring more time into studying and trying to learn. So happy Sabbath. That's why hard to watch television, too much swearing. Yeah. If you watch a carnal movie, right? You'll find it messes with you. Okay, remember, what we see and what we hear, they're going to affect us. They're going to affect our spirit. So if we're watching horror movies or anything horror, doesn't matter what it is, it's going to affect us. Okay, we need to stop doing that sort of stuff. We need to focus on things that are going to build our spirit. And so that's why we gravitate towards the shows and movies that we will, which will be, Christian-based things, and things of hope, of life, of goodness. And I very rarely watch a movie, but if I do, it's always try and keep it clean. So once again, not putting burdens on anyone, but just trying to give an example of these are just unnecessary things that we bring into our lives. The media, the news, these other things, they're all going to just drain you of how you feel. So this is why it's difficult walking with Jesus. It's why it's difficult, carrying our cross in submission, because the things that are pleasing to him, there's not many things in this world, right, that aren't corrupted. And so when we're involved in them, we're not only corrupting our own temple, but we're basically, we're demonstrating that we care more about our own wants and desires. So, grieving the Holy Spirit, exactly. If we go too far, it's going to grieve that Spirit, and that Spirit's going to start to dwindle. We're going to lose oil. So, but keep praying to him. Pray all the time. We should pray all the time to have oil in your lamps. Pray for faith. Pray to help with your unbelief. Pray for faith. Pray for, the Holy Spirit. Before I start this, every single reading, I always pray for the Holy Spirit to come upon me. During this reading, I pray to be his mouthpiece. I pray to the words, to the effect to not be my own. I pray to surrender and try and decrease myself and lose that sense of self. And I find that out of these readings, like I can obviously feel the moments when that kicks in and out, but I also have to be very careful of my own temptations to, you know, to just do what we all do, speak about ourselves, things like that. Okay, it's very easy to do. Okay, this channel is about the Word and glorifying Him, and so speaking about myself is a trap I often fall into, and I have to train myself. It's okay to use yourself as an example or share your testimony, okay, but you don't want to make this about me at all. And by saying that, you kind of do. So you see the challenge, right? It's difficult. These things are difficult. So observe the Sabbath day, keep it holy as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. You or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your ox or your donkey or any of your livestock. And one thing that comes to mind too, all right, is that like there was a channel that I was following for a little while that I was led to move away from, and so for example, like I know that particular person was obviously knows the Word really well and was blessed in doing so, but then they started to associate themselves with other people that weren't good for them, and so that person now talks openly about things like having concubines and all this stuff from the Old Testament, right? And it's like they've taken it too far. You know what I mean? They've taken the Word and then they've just applied it to their own life to fulfill the things that they want in the flesh, okay, which is crazy, right? So we have to be careful of that too. We have to be careful that we don't become overly religious, is what I'm saying, but we also have to be careful that we don't go the other way and use the Word in order to fulfill the desires of this world, like saying that it's a blessing to God blesses us with cash, with money and things like that, right? And so that's the dangerous game that we play, is that we oscillate between that extreme of saying I'm blessed, and so we see people like on the extreme, the prosperity gospel, we see that on the extreme too. But then on the other extreme of over-religiousness, we also see things like not understanding what was written about foods being clean, and things like that, where people will literally like only eat like 3 types of food in order to fulfill, the law, which has been already fulfilled by Jesus and that saying. So that might breed confusion for some. They might say, well, what are we to do then? And what we're to do is to read and understand the Word, so that when those things come up, we apply the Word to understanding them. Okay, so when someone comes up and tells you, oh, you can have a bunch of concubines, all right, and you go, but I'm a married man, I'm only supposed to, be married to one person. Oh yeah, but this says this, and if you know your Word, you can turn around and say, no, that's false. Okay, if someone comes up to you and says, no, you can't eat fish because God said no, it's unclean, all right, then you can turn around and say, no, that's false, because if you think it's unclean, it's made unclean. You bring a curse upon yourself, because as we see, as it is written, all things were made clean through Him. It's not what goes in the mouth that defiles a person, right? It's not. It passes through and goes through to the stomach. It doesn't defile you. Okay, so this is the thing that we have to understand, is by applying the Word and being doers of the Word, we need to just continually study the Word and find out, okay, where's more understanding? Where's the next level of understanding? Okay, we know that the law wasn't done away with, okay, but we know that the law transitioned, okay, the law was fulfilled by Jesus on that cross, okay, and we see that happened, but we also see that we're beholden to His commands, His commandments still. Okay, the law still applies to the earth. Otherwise, people would be running around murdering each other freely and not be sin. Okay, lawlessness is sin. Basically, breaking of God's laws is sin. Okay, so those who believe in the Son, okay, will receive the Holy Spirit and become, free from the curse of the law, free from that. The law wasn't, and they'll be able to and willing to keep his commandments, okay? So therefore they'll demonstrate their love for him, therefore they'll demonstrate their faith, therefore they'll make it, okay? So, or have the ability to make it if they follow his will, right? So it doesn't have to be a bad thing knowing places and need things and helping them to get there. This lawlessness is sinful, yeah. So this is the thing, right, is that like we just have to be able to learn to identify the things and understand the things that come in our path and how to contend with them. So if someone took your Bible away tomorrow and you were faced with situations, if you knew the word, you would knew what to do in that situation. You knew what would be the righteous thing, right? You'd know that the righteous thing would be to do. You'd know how to handle the situation. But if you're untrained in the word or you don't know the word and the situation comes upon you, you have nothing to lean on. You literally lean on your own wisdom, which counts for nothing. And so therefore, that's where we stumble. So it actually protects us if you look at it that way, doesn't it? It actually protects us. It stops us making stupid decisions. And I'll call them stupid decisions because for a person, right, who's been blessed by God, this other person who I will not name somebody. Okay, I will not name somebody. But this person who was blessed by God, clearly, right, to then subscribe to those things and to subscribe to those things in knowing the word has intentionally made that decision, okay? And by doing so, they're in a difficult place because that person will be completely and utterly convinced of their salvation. That person will be utterly convinced that they're going to be, whatever they're going to be. And so therefore they're in that position and they don't even know it, right? And people point it out, but they don't hear it, they reject it. And so they've been warned and then they reject it. And then what do? Okay, someone rejects it. So we have the responsibility, right, is actually not to be caught off guard. We're better to be wrong. All right, we're better to be wrong. Like I'm better to say something here, just out an error, right, and make an error of judgment, where I get something wrong or I read something wrong or I don't quite understand, than to intentionally go and willfully make a decision using God's word as a ticket to go and do something. That's where you're in real trouble. Okay, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to be corrected because we're growing and learning here. Okay, we're not admitting we know everything, but that's the thing. We're going to make mistakes. Those mistakes are going to be, unintentional, but they will occur. And so as we learn and continue to read, the great, wonderful thing is that the more that we understand and the more that we continue to read, is that more situations we can apply the word effectively in our life. And we can make sure that however much time we have for applying it, we're being a doer of the word, and we're not just, saying what sounds great, and we're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. So we see that, in recent times, or you guys, I see that every day, you guys encouraging each other, showing love for each other. I haven't seen anybody on here attacking anyone. Like, I don't even think the whole time, right? I haven't seen anyone attacking it. And the only time is when someone comes in and obviously disrupts the place. And but I haven't seen anybody doing that. And so that's a wonderful thing to be able to say that, is that people that come on here treat each other, with love and respect each other and help each other, pray for each other. That's the sort of environment you want to create. That's what we want to create, an environment that encourages that. But it also encourages we are accountable for our own walk. We walk fellowship together, but we understand we are having to, we're accountable for our own understanding, all of us. So we have to put in the time. We have to come together and learn and discuss these hard topics. And they're not easy to talk about. They're not the funnest thing. Okay, we all want to get to the good stuff. We all want to feel like get to the encouraging things where they make us feel like on a high. But sometimes the iron sharpening iron or that deep down,
that deep down conviction is what we really need to get that fire started, because we start to stop lying to ourselves. We start to being truthful with ourselves at where we really are at, and we reflect on it, and then we realize, hey, I need to apply the word more to my life. I need to make sure that when I am taking these steps, that I am actually, thinking about, and I am going to God as well, right, and not to man. I'm asking, praying, right? We want to make sure that we're praying on these things, taking it to God and saying, what do I do? Father, what do I do? Where do you need me? Where do you want me? What do I do about this situation, and that sort of thing. And same we're going to the Bible, looking for the answer. I relied on it heavily in my marital situation of how to, that was a difficult situation of how to handle that, because I had to rely on the word, what the word was telling me, in order to understand where, what was biblical and what wasn't, for example. So it's very difficult, but when we have that, we've got to remember to use it. We've got to remember, hey, I'm in this situation. Go find the example and what's the lesson, what's the commandment here, what's it telling me to do. So let's just quickly read this and then we'll finish up. Of course I don't want to be a hypocrite either. Okay, I don't want to. That's the worst thing, is a hypocrite, somebody who says all these things and doesn't do them either. So every day, obviously, I fall short. I openly admit it, but I'm continuing to try and work on myself and my own wretchedness and my own brokenness. Okay, and dust myself off so I can come on here and read for you guys and make sure that I'm not bringing all my stuff into here either. When I come in here, we're talking about what we're talking about, of course. So I am taking these things to heart, and not just blurting them out for you. I'm trying to live by them as well, and make sure that and these times we're in, these dangerous times where the earth is inherently covered in darkness, that we understand. The followers of Christ are but few. And we're going to see this big falling away start to occur. Watch them tumble. Watch them tumble, because it's going to get tough. Right? I'll be honest. I'm expecting a day to come, right, where immediately I can't pay rent. Immediately I don't have a job. Immediately I don't have an income to support my family. Immediately I've got to go in and pack my stuff up and work out what to do with it. Probably sell it, whatever, and immediately I'm going to be somewhere else, right? And it's probably all going to happen in a tight window, right? Where it's just going to be like that. Now I understand God takes care of his people, okay? But what do we see with Elijah? What do we see with all the others? Okay, we saw they had to go where they were needed. And if he needs you somewhere, like you guys, all right, all this stuff, even though I don't have much stuff, but all this stuff, right, what's it going to be of value? When the lights go out, when the world changes, what's your phone going to do for you? What's your TV going to do for you? It's all going to be worthless. It's not going to mean anything. So, I'm expecting the worst, and I pray for the best, of course, but I do expect that that will happen, and so I prepared myself for that. If it comes down to that, and it gets dark, and we can't do this anymore, right? This fellowship, that I can rest assured, going, what, we used our time, we read every day, we talked about these things. I pray that brothers and sisters, they're all going to be doing the same. They're all going to be strong when it's time, right? I can sleep better knowing that I didn't sit back and not talk about this stuff. So I bring this up, to help strengthen you and remind you as well that, whatever happens, if it happened tomorrow, if it happened today, be sure in knowing that God's going to be there with you, and he's all you need, right? He's all you need. But we come together now to learn and to prepare ourselves for those moments to come, because there's going come a time where everyone's going to hate you, right? Everyone's going to hate you, but he's going to show his people. There will be no doubt. There will be no doubt that you're his people, right? There'll be no doubt. Everyone will see it. They're going to hate you though. Don't forget that. So they're going to hate you, and you have to get used to that rejection. You have to get used to those things. And if you're with him, okay, and he's your strength, he's your tower, none of the other stuff matters. Don't worry about the how and the what and the when, okay? Just worry about he's with you, and that he'll get you there. Observe the Sabbath day. So we read that. Where is it? You shall remember that you're a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house. Okay, covet means desire or want. Okay, so you can't tell lies about your neighbor. Okay, but you can't want your neighbor's wife. You can't desire your neighbor's house and things or possessions. They're not yours, they're his. Right? They're his. His fields are his male servant or hers, or his female servant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words the Lord spoke to all your assembly at the mountain of the midst of the fire, the cloud and the thick darkness, with a loud voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. And as soon as you heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was burning with fire, you came near to me, and all the heads of your tribes and your elders. I love this recountance, it's awesome. And you said, Behold, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and greatness, and we've heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. This day we have seen God speak with man, and man still live. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of the Lord our God any more, we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that has heard the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of fire, as we have and has still lived? Go near and hear all the Lord our God will say, and speak to us all that the Lord our God will speak to you, and we will hear and do it. And the Lord heard your words when you spoke to me. And the Lord said to me, I have heard the words of this people, which they have spoken to you. They are right in all that they have spoken. Oh, that they had such a heart as this always, to fear me and to keep all my commandments, that it might go well with them and with their descendants forever. Go and say to them, Return to your tents, but you stand here by me, and I will tell you the whole commandment, and the statutes and the rules that you shall teach them, that they may do them in the land that I am giving them to possess. You shall be careful, therefore, to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the way that the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live, and that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land that you shall possess. Okay, and I'll read this one too. The greatest commandment. Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son and your son's son, by keeping all his statutes and all his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you. Okay, so we need to pay attention to this, because we understand that, this doesn't change. Okay, the fear of the Lord doesn't change. Okay, hear, that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you in the land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your might. And in English, ESV is a little bit different. And these words that I command you today, that shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And when the Lord your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you a great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, and cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. And when you eat and are full, then take care lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. That's what happens in prosperity. Understand? When things are going well, everybody's got what they want. They're all fat and happy. And that's the thing, like, is that when he actually moves in our life and we receive a blessing, okay, or he gives us, I don't know, some sort of charge. All right, this reading this Bible to you guys, I see this as a great blessing. Okay, to be put in to be reading to you. I see this as a great blessing to do this every day. I don't complain and moan about it. Some days I struggle to get out of bed, I'll be honest. But I still, unless I'm sick or there's something kind of wrong, then I'm here because I see it as a blessing. But the point is that it's easy when you're in the blessing, when things are going well, okay, to completely forget about the very purpose of why you're here in the first place. Okay, so we're here to read the Word of God, okay, and we're here to glorify God's name, and we're here to study, and so we mustn't forget that. We mustn't forget that. That's the thing. And so he's saying here, like, people in the world, they're off living their lives. They're blessed with having children. God still makes it rain on the just and the unjust. He blesses people that are having children. They're planning for 30, 50 years ahead. All this sort of stuff, right? And then they've forgotten about God. They haven't got to know him. They attribute all of the good things to happen to just pure chance and to pure luck, if they will. And they don't acknowledge him. Okay, greatest blessing is you have a child and you praise God. You acknowledge God. Thank you for the wonderful gift. Okay, that's what he wants. He just wants he wants that acknowledgement. If we acknowledge him in all things that we receive and we're grateful, he blesses us more. What do we see with Solomon? Okay, Solomon asked in order to, to serve God's will, in order to better do, God's will, and his make sure his kingdom was right, and he needed wisdom in order to rule the kingdom. So he asked for that, and God saw that and realized that was such a thing, and so he blessed him with all other things too. Okay, so that intent of our heart, when we truly give thanks in those moments where we acknowledge that it was a work of him and not a work of our own hands, it's truly what he wants us to do. It's truly in his will for us to do so. That's glorifying his name. When his son died on the cross, they glorified his name. Okay, we all talk about Jesus now. We understand what he did for us on the cross. We understand that that's the basis of the new covenant. We understand that's the reason why we have salvation in the first place, is through his blood and his great sacrifice for us. That was a great moment where the enemy was overcome. The enemy couldn't beat that, all right? Because once that happened, okay, salvation and this period of grace began. So how's the enemy going to stop you believing, right? With distraction, with temptation. All he can really do is tempt you, and all he can really do is razz you up, all right, and just pursue you and try and, confuse you and cause you to stumble. But if you don't stumble, he can't do anything. Right? This is a battle of souls. He's just he sees the side you're on. He's trying to bring you back to the other side. He's trying to reclaim you back into the world again. But God won't let you out of his hands. Okay, so you must also understand that. Must also understand that this is a thing of good and evil. And when you really step into the authority that he's given us, okay, to overcome the enemy, to tread on serpents and scorpions, right? To this power to deliver ourselves from these strongholds through his name, right? Through the use of his name. when we step into that and believe that authority and have faith, we can do that. And so that's the power of his name and what he did for us. So we must glorify him in all things that we do in our walk and make sure that we're living in accordance. So by living in accordance, in living in a way that brings glory to him, where we're surrendering the wickedness out of our lives, okay, and we're surrendering our lives in doing so, allowing him to lead us into what it is for us that is in his will, we then glorify him. Okay, we glorify him. And our obedience doesn't look like prosperity. Our obedience doesn't look like, mansions and fast cars. It doesn't even, it looks like suffering. Okay, it looks like struggle. It looks like daily battle, torment. Okay, it looks like all of these things. Okay, because those things are the enemy trying to stop you. Those things are those distractions fighting against you, fighting for you to go back to your old vomit. We don't want that. So understand that, right? When there is a battle going on, understand who's sovereign over all things. But it is part of your walk, and it's part of what you have to face, and you have to overcome it. Okay, so it is the Lord your God you shall fear. Him you shall serve, and by his name you shall swear. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are around you. For the Lord your God is in your midst, is a jealous God. Lest the anger of the Lord your God be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. It shall not be. So for example, right, as we've spoken about, like, it's pretty simple, but let's use Santa Claus, for example, or the Red Man as a nickname him on here. Okay, once you know the truth about him, that it represents Nimrod's birthday, that it also represents Saturnalia, a pagan festival, that the Red Man mocks Christ, okay, in all things that are there, that he's an anagram for Satan as well. If you continue to worship him knowing the truth, that's on you. Right? If you've decided to know the truth and you decided to walk and worship him, you take that up with God, all right? Because that's your decision, that you've decided to do that knowing the truth. This is the difficult thing of the Christian walk, or the walking with Jesus. You know the truth, what are you going to do? You know the truth, are you going to continue to do it? Or are you going to turn away from that? Okay, you're going to turn away from that. And people will say, well, what am I supposed to do? Lock myself in a box? And you're like, no. But you have to be able to apply the word. And even we see what God commands us to do is not have other gods before us. Not have idols before us. What does that mean to you? That means surrender. Okay? The celebrities that you used to idolize, all right, if you continue to pursue after them, you're basically going to be walking in disobedience. And that's not me saying that. That's his word saying that. Okay, is these things, they're not going to be pleasing to him. Right? It's not going to be pleasing to him. And so he's going to lead you away from these things. When the truth is revealed to you, it's to try and lead you away from that for your own. These things seem innocent. Okay, little chocolate bunnies seem innocent. Many people are munging on those right now, or will be tomorrow in Australia, for example. Right, and just thinking, oh, it's just fun for the kids, it's all right, it's harmless. Okay, but the real truth behind it is that when you know the truth, all right, what are you going to do? Okay, what are you going to do? As this world becomes more wicked, when you know the truth, what are you going to do? Think about it, okay? That's how difficult this walk is. When you know the truth, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue in knowing the truth, or are you going to say, no, I will take no part in that nonsense? That's the difficult part. That's the narrow path. It's hard. Don't think it's this easy thing. It's not. It's this hard thing. And none of us know where we are standing on it. Truly. Anyone who claims anything, nobody knows, okay? God will speak to you, encourage you, okay? But you can't become complacent. That's definitely the lesson for today. don't just assume anything. Every day pick up our cross and carry it and surrender. Okay, surrender. Surrender your will. Your will might be to just continue to celebrate that thing, okay, because it keeps your kids happy. Okay, the hard thing would be to sit your kids down and to actually start teaching them the Bible. That's the hard path, right? That's the path that, say, somebody might not choose to do. And they just say, well, it's too hard, they're too young. It's just an excuse. They're never too young to learn about Jesus. They're never too young to learn the truth. But you have to be very careful of how you do it. You don't want to break them. You don't want to, you don't want to terrify them, but you also need to find ways of building them up and strengthening them. So as they grow, if we have more time, for example, if we do have more time, then as they grow, that they're strong enough that they can withstand this evil that's around them, that they're able to stand as well. Okay, so very difficult. Some people might call it extreme, but if you know the truth and you turn away from the truth and you continue in your way, what is obedience to the truth? Walking in spirit and truth. Are you really? If you know the truth and you turn away? So it's up to us to study and understand the truth. Don't take my word for it. Go and look at, things that I've talked about. And, if you look at it and you realize that, the hard road is not the road that's comfortable. It's uncomfortable. We spent Christmas this year on this channel reading the words, studying the word. All right, we spent the time knowing my family was off doing what they were doing. All right, and I knew that, and I made that sacrifice because I, not being prideful, just saying, like, I had to make a decision once I knew the truth, and I couldn't after that. I couldn't then continue to follow in the old path. So it's only quite new to me, some of that stuff too. So yeah, it's not like, look at me, I did this thing, No. It's like, I knew the truth. What was I to do? Want me to walk back in the lie or walk in the truth again? So the more the truth is unveiled to you of the world that we live in and that you see and that you seek out and you understand, the more conviction you'll feel. Okay, the more things that you will understand, because that it's the truth. So you shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God and his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you, and you shall do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may go well with you, and you may go in and take possession of the good land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers, by thrusting out all your enemies from before you as the Lord has promised. When your son asks you in time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules and the Lord our God has commanded for you? Okay, so we see this, keep his commandments. We see that we're saved through his grace by our faith. Our faith is accounted for as righteousness, as we see. Okay, which then it bears fruit, which then sanctifies us. That's how it works. Okay, so our faith is the most important thing. Okay, out of all this, out of everything, because our faith leads to our salvation. I can't say the word faith for some reason today. Our faith leads to our salvation. Okay, once we receive his spirit, then we begin our journey, our long journey of turning this putting on this new creature, and this battle between the flesh and the spirit. And so as we battle every day, as Charmaine points out, there's much expected of us. So for whom much is given, much will be required. Let me find that. So Luke 12:48. Okay, so this is actually a good one here, just to go back a little bit. Okay, let's read this and then let's read this and we'll finish up. Okay, so you must be ready. This is great. This is perfect. Thank you, Charmaine. It's a perfect way to end this. Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning, and be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast. so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Okay, so awake, not just like up at night, but sober, vigilant, keeping watch. Okay, lamps burning full of oil. Okay, truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at table. Okay, he takes great joy in these people that have their lamps burning and are watching and are sober and vigilant. Okay, and he will truly serve them, have them recline at table. That's what they would do at Passover. They would recline at the table and, then share a meal together and love each other, right? And he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third and finds them awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. He would not have abandoned his faith, right? He would not have abandoned his post. He would not have gone off the wall that he was supposed to be watching, okay? Like we were talking about earlier. You must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Peter said, Lord, are you telling this parable for us? Telling this parable for us or for all? And the Lord said, who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom his master will set over his household? I'm telling this to those that are wise, that will listen. Right? Who is the wise? Welcome, Vina. That's okay. Yeah, no worries. That's fine. No way. I'm just studying all day, like through the day. I'm still doing the readings and that sort of thing. I wouldn't abandon reading the word. So, but yeah, I'm just focusing on study. So thank you. Yeah, all good to watch it back. It's pretty heavy at the start, but it's okay. It was on my heart this morning to mention this. So it's all good. So who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom his master will set over his household? Okay, it's like the wise virgins, right? To give them their portion of food at the proper time. Blessed is that servant, and he says, I'll set over his household. The master will give him authority, okay? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Oh, that's okay. Sorry, I probably didn't make it very clear, actually. So yeah, sorry about that myself. So yeah, blessed who finds the servant who finds him doing this when he comes. Okay, so if the master of the house finds you like just watching TV, if the master of the house finds you like having a party, a rapture party, okay, what's he going to think? Right? Whereas if the master finds you diligently at work, preparing as he instructed, diligently focused on every day, using the time that we have left to build his kingdom, to build his house, okay, what's he going to do? He's saying he'll love to have you, he'll serve you himself. A recliner at table, you can recline at the table, he'll serve you himself. Understand his love. He loves to see us diligent. He loves to see us busy. He loves to see us actively working on his kingdom. He loves to see us keeping his commandments and caring about the details. The details matter. He doesn't love to see us complacently boasting about how we're going to be an armored soldier, and do all these things. Okay, it's important to understand as we read the Bible what his promises are for us. Okay, we talk about this, about being his army. We talk about these things. Okay, we talk about these things in the understanding that you can see what his promises are, that you can see what he said to us. You can see what your salvation means, that you can define it, that you can be sure that God doesn't lie, right? He tells the truth. But the thing that you can't see is you can't see your performance report. Okay, and our faith, our salvation isn't based on that. But as a servant, okay, as a son, an adopted son or daughter in Christ, as someone who's been purchased in order to help build his kingdom and to serve him, okay, like the talents, one person buried it in the ground out of fear and did nothing with it. The others, okay, they made interest. Okay, they bore fruit. So using our time effectively to bear fruit for your own sanctification, but for his kingdom. That's what he wants. Okay, so that doesn't involve doing nothing. Let's be real. You can't sit around and bear fruit. Okay, you bear fruit through your demonstration of your faith, through building your faith, through increasing your oil in your lamp, because that is then counted as righteousness. Okay, and that faith leads you to stand here amongst you all and to talk about these things. That faith will lead you to one of you guys when you share your testimony with somebody. That faith is when you teach your children the word. That faith is where you see the needy on the street, all right, and everyone walks past and you've got like $5 in your pocket and you hand it to them, right? Those things, caring about others and serving others and helping others before your own needs, okay, those things demonstrate your faith, right? Those actions aren't somebody who has no faith. The actions of somebody who has no faith are the actions of somebody in the world fulfilling the lusts of the flesh. Okay, so when you see that every ounce of your life now of walking with him, you can glorify him. You can demonstrate your faith in everything you do, in your conversations, in the way that you hug somebody, in the way that you forgive somebody, in the way that you care for each other, in the way that you bear each other up when they're going through a lot. That's all demonstration of faith. That's all the bearing or the practice of righteousness. That is all the bearing of fruit, all in those actions, because you're walking in the Spirit. Right? You're going to bear the fruit of the Spirit. All those things are of the Spirit. They're not of the flesh. Off the flesh are the people on the couch. Of the flesh are the people in the world. All right, you understand? Is that he wants us to. This is what he wants us to be doing. He wants us to come to this realization, this deep realization that through every action, like Paul, to live is Christ. Life is Christ. It becomes that. And that's a difficult thing because we have our own will, our own desires. Today I'm going to do this. In a year's time I plan to do this. All this stuff, right? And these are the things that we just expect are going to be there tomorrow. Okay, it's a really difficult thing to understand. And as we've gone through the Bible, we start to realize that not many people get this understanding through when they read it. They don't realize the depth of what Jesus commanded us. Okay, and so when he calls us, and when it's time, right, and if he finds you diligent, right, I'm not just saying on my channel, right, I'm saying like after this reading, what do you do? How do you spend your time? Do you spend your time with thinking of him? Do you spend your time serving others? These things I can't help you with here. Of course, I can point them out, but we're responsible for ourselves in our own, how we use our time effectively and what we do and how we bear fruit in this place. So Paul said, it's a win-win because, if I'm here and I'm still living for God's purpose alone, I live. I do not live for my own purpose anymore. I live only for him. Only for him. All right. And that to live is life is Christ to him. Okay. And that it's better that he be with the Father, right, to go be with him. But if he's required here on earth, his work is not yet done, that's equally good. All right. That's good. And so it was a win-win for him. Whether he lived or died, but his focus was purely on that. And that's a hard thing for many people to decide. It's a hard thing. It will really change you. It will really sober you up quickly when you really think about it. So something important to ponder today. Okay, so truly he will set him over all his possessions. But if that servant says to himself, my master is delayed in coming. Remember my dream, the thief dream. Okay, let that be a warning to others who think the same. He will do something similar and he will let you know, right? Okay, my master is delayed in coming and begins to beat the male and female servants. He begins to sin, right? And to eat and drink and get drunk because he thinks he can just do whatever. right? He thinks that it won't be seen. And so what he does, he takes himself out of this state of readiness. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and put him with the unfaithful. Fear God. And this is in Luke, guys. This is in Luke, the new covenant, right? Just remember that. This is in Luke. This is not in the Old Testament. Okay? Fear God. Massively fear God. And that servant who knew his master's will, but did not get ready or act according to his will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know, so let's go there slowly. Okay? And the servant who knew, you knew it was God's will to be ready, but you didn't get ready or act according to his will. Okay? You'll receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what deserved a beating will receive a light beating. Okay? They're still going to receive a beating because their ignorance. Everyone to whom much was given, of him much will be required. And from him to whom they entrusted much, they will demand the more. Okay, the master, Jesus. Okay, if he gives you much, he expects much. He expects much. The very Jesus that said, "You're my friend if you do what I say. You're my friend if you do what I command." Do you understand? Now, we can only pray to be as truthful and honest as God. We can only pray to be straight up and honest, because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to upset people. It's a natural thing of love. Okay, but understand that the word and the truth offends people. People will get their back up when they hear this. People will leave this channel when they hear this because the conviction will lead them to go, "Oh, no, that's not me. No, I don't need to do. This is overly religious." All right. That's what people will do when they deny what the word says, okay, is that they'll run, okay, and they won't be ready. So, I don't want to leave this on a note where you guys feel deflated. You should feel strong, okay, because understand that, as we've been studying, as we've been doing these things, okay, you've been demonstrating your faith, just turning up by reading the word, by learning, by growing all together, by loving each other as I see on this channel. Okay? Yeah, this truth is difficult to accept. Very difficult to accept. Right? But it is part of this walk, this very difficult walk that we're on. And as I spoke about at the start, if you've just joined, there is this very serious tone about this year. Okay, very serious tone. And the good thing about understanding that now is preparing your hearts, okay, preparing your spirit for these things that are coming. Okay, so you don't get this panicked feeling. So you don't get caught unaware. So you don't, when things start to play out, that you don't suddenly just, you can't breathe. So that you're able to focus and go, yep, okay, I knew this year this was going to happen. I knew this was going to start to play out. I had this strong conviction. I didn't know when, but I knew it was going to come. I prepared myself for this. The time is almost at hand to be sent out. The time is almost at hand to go and work. Okay, am I ready? I'm examining myself. Are there things that I haven't repented for? Are there things that I felt in my spirit that I'm convicted of? How can I make sure that I've washed my garment? Okay, and so that I'm constantly in that state and I'm ready. But also too, how can I understand that my faith has to be there. I have to trust if everything catches on fire around me, that God's for me, God's with me, and I will stand. 1,000 will fall at your side. Remember, like we were reading yesterday in Psalm 91. Such a marvelous part of it. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. Okay, because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge. No evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. We were talking about that earlier. Because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I'll protect him because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I'll rescue him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. This is his promise to you. Right? This is what he promises to you. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just understand that what he also says is, if you love me, keep my commandments. He also says, if you're my friend, okay, do what I ask, do what I command. Okay, if you're truly, truly dedicated to him and you're truly submitted to him, okay, then ready yourself. Ready yourself, because he's coming back for what he's purchased. And if he's purchased you, shine that car up. Okay? Make sure that car's nice and shiny. So when he comes, it's not all covered in, dirt and all sorts of stuff. Make sure you are truly deep down, only you can know, walking with him and walking in obedience to him, and fear him and understand that, he will protect you in this storm that's coming, and that storm is upon us now. Okay, the storm is coming, and so keep watching, guys. Chin up, be positive. Okay, it's a pretty hard word today, but understand that it's all for our benefit. I need it too. Okay, I need to remind myself that as I go about my day today, that I give thanks for everything, and that I remember his promises, that I have that faith there, okay, that he will do what he says he's going to do. We are the ones that can question here. Are we going to do what we say we're going to do? Understand? If we are going to do what we say we're going to do, he's going to do what he says he's going to do. That's it, right? That's it. It's simple. Okay, so walk with him. He's with you every moment of every day. He's in here. He's in your heart. His Spirit's in you. Okay, so he will keep you at peace. You won't feel the conviction of this other than the good side of it. Okay, and then you will know the actions you need to take as you go about your day or your night, wherever you are, and what you need to do to prepare, because this is what happens when you get an issued a notice to move in the army and someone says, you got 24 hours to pack your gear, get ready to go. All right, this is no different than that. This is where the warnings go out. All right, these things, they're very, very close now to what's happening, and it's time to pack your gear, and it's time to make sure that you have everything squared away and you know where it all is. You're keeping his word, you're keeping his commandments. You're not getting carried away in the antics of the world, in the parties of the crowd who don't study. Okay, and you're sticking closely with your true brothers and sisters in Christ who care and love you. Okay, that won't abandon you, that will stay with you until the very end, and that you are encouraging each other. You are helping God's people, helping the poor, the needy, the widows, people of the world who can't. They every day is a fight for them. Okay, so we're doing that as well. We're continuing to walk and practice our righteousness, and hating evil and wickedness, and not inviting that into our everyday, not inviting that into our lives of our kids and our family members, and we're suppressing that. We're getting rid of that, and we continue on that path, guys. And there are wonderful things ahead, but there are also there are a great many challenges ahead too. But you've got the greatest force, the greatest. He's a mighty God. He's on your side, right? And the mighty God is with you. So I'll leave you with that. Be strong. Understand that these things, this eclipse doesn't appear to be false at all, and that it appears to be the end of a 7-year period of eclipses, as we've discussed. And this 7-year period of eclipses appears to form through another 7-year period leading up until 2030, which is where Agenda 2030 seems to fit perfectly, where the enemy only has such a short time. So with his help we can do all things. Without him we can do nothing. Exactly. He's with us, right? He's with us, not against us, and we can do anything through him. So So God bless, guys. Have a wonderful day and night. I hope this encourages and strengthens you. And be on alert. Keep your eyes peeled. Be sharp. And have a wonderful day and night. God bless.